out of chicken shit.
Here I was, blaming AEW for feeding you chicken shit, knowing you mindless millennials would be eating it up as if it were chicken salad, when it's really been your fault all along.
Make chicken salad out of chicken shit. People is as people does, that's all there is to it. Put a square peg in a round hole, just never seems to fit. And you can't make chicken salad out of chicken shit.
Here I was, blaming AEW for feeding you chicken shit, knowing you mindless millennials would be eating it up as if it were chicken salad, when it's really been your fault all along.
Make chicken salad out of chicken shit. People is as people does, that's all there is to it. Put a square peg in a round hole, just never seems to fit. And you can't make chicken salad out of chicken shit.
Hello and welcome to Making Chicken Salad, the Wrestle Radio Australia podcast where we talk about everything going on around the world of wrestling. I almost lost it, but I never lose. I am joined, as always, by Mr. Big Business, Todd Eastman. Todd, how you doing, mate?
I'm booming, mate.
Booming. And I am joined by the King of Chaos, Jeff Setti. Jeff, how you doing, buddy?
Wabba-dub-dub-dub. I'm pretty good, mate. How's yourself?
Yeah, getting there. We are talking tonight about MCW Fight to Survive. MCW has been on a bit of a roll lately with their shows, and this one, headlined by a big 5-on-5 survival style match, was one that we definitely wanted to cover. So we are going to run through the card, run through what we liked, what we didn't like, and then get some chicken salad and shit going on. Yeah, Todd. Yeah.
Before you start, mate, just for the people that are listening to the stream, we're doing this, then we're doing PWA straight after it. So it's not just the MCW thing. This half, the stuff that will show up on the podcast right now is the one that the people will be listening to if you've downloaded the podcast for MCW, is just the MCW review. Straight after this, for here, if you're listening to the stream, we're going to go to an ad break. Then when we come back, we'll do the PWA night 1 and night 2 of Coliseum. So and there'll be two separate podcasts up on the feed.
So, Todd, what you're telling me is that you can get 2 podcasts in one if you follow us here at twitch.tv/Wrestle Radio Australia?
That is absolutely correct. But wait,
there's more. For every 5 podcasts you listen to live on the Twitch stream, we'll send you a free set of steak knives.
No, steak knives will not be included.
Imaginary steak knives.
We don't do that thing, mate. We don't promise something and then not deliver. We're not a...
that's someone else. No one. Let's talk about Fight to Survive. We will get to talking about chicken shit and chicken salad later in the show, but we're going to take it off. I'm going to run through the card and then we'll talk about each match in a bit more depth. Nick Armstrong beat Mikey Broderick. Erica Reed and Aisha ended in a double countout. Ryan Rapid defeats Wake with his new name. MCW Inter-Commonwealth Championship and Women's Championship on the line in a winner-takes-all match, with Delta losing both those titles. Jarvis losing both those titles to Delta. The Natural Classics in a tag team match defeating TMDK. And in the main event, the Fight to Survive 10-man tag match, the Lone Survivor Slex managing to bring Big Business to victory over the Kings of Chaos. Hello to Keanu Reviews in the chat, and thank you for hanging out this weekend, buddy. Let's talk about, from the top of this card, Nick Armstrong and Mikey Broderick. What a fun opener. I really like the Universal Swolger Mikey Broderick with the squat gimmick, and a great foil for Nick Armstrong's insistence on being a part of MCW.
Yeah, look, live, they're both over as hell. Nick is particularly popular. Coming out in the Rumble as Nick Legstrom, from there, the guy's just going to have trouble getting booed. I know he's a heel, but he's so funny. and so good in this role. It's a gimmick that really suits him. Yeah, the tongue wags, he's just appallingly funny. So he's great. And look, the crowd were into this, like really into this. In fact, I would go as far as to say the first half of this show was near on perfect. And live, wow. These, as I said, these two guys are both over like Rover, so it was such fun.
Yeah. Sorry about that. Holy Moses. Sorry about that, guys. I apologize.
No problem. You were
little
saying?
Technical difficulty. Had to do that there. I was just setting something up for later. Yeah, I love Nick Armstrong. I think the discovery of MCW that have made about Nick is wonderful to see over the last however many months they've done it, with him constantly being kicked out and coming back, and then coming back as different people. And then I think as a heel, he's almost sort of like healed his way into the crowd liking him.
Yes. Yeah.
And I also like the fact that they gave him a win.
I think
because
it was about time.
You couldn't keep beating him and keep beating, because eventually people are just going to expect him to lose every match, and there's no real stakes to it when he's in the deal. And let's face it, Mikey can lose a match and he's not really losing anything by doing that.
When you look like Mikey Broderick, everyone believes you can win every match.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, for what was on the rest of this show, I could not really think of any other match that could have opened the show but those two, because there was a little bit of comedy, there's a little bit of comedy with two guys who can both wrestle their asses off, which is good to see when you've got guys that can do both of those things, both working together to pull off a good opening match, and that's what this was.
And both these guys know how important the crowd is, right? That's a big part of it, is that Mikey can build up to doing one squat and it's a huge deal. Like, those are the things that get an opening match really getting people invested in it, is when you can have these really simple moves, have the crowd buy in, and then actually have a good wrestling match on top of it that sets everyone in for the kind of show that this was. And I think it was an excellent choice to open it up. After this, Erica Reed versus Aisha, ending in a double count out. What did we think of this one, starting with Todd?
I like it because they're not just blowing it off in the one show. They're not just like, here's two girls, here's your winner, here's your loser, we're done here. They're putting something a little extra into it. The only criticism I will have for it is there could have been a tad more intensity in their moves building up at the end there, because it was just very much someone knocks someone down and stands over them for a while, and then they slowly get up and then they beat each other up again. Do you know what I mean? There was no real, at the end of that match, a real, like, there was a pull apart, but it wasn't really a pull apart. Do you know what I mean? It was sort of like, it felt to me like a little bit of a half-hearted pull apart. Whereas I would have liked to have seen, like, the intensity during that match build up to the double count out. Like, when they were fighting in the outside there, it wasn't really so much fighting as it just seemed to be like a part of a match that we see all the time, and the count just somehow gets put off until they get back in the ring. Do you know what I mean? There wasn't really...
I get what you're saying. I kind of felt the intensity of it. I think it could have used a little more, and I think that they were both capable of a little more intensity. But I also think that, this is Erica's return to MCW after a while, and this is going to be a marquee women's feud going forward. You don't want to start too hot. Like, I totally understand what you're saying, Todd, but I'm glad that they left somewhere to build to, because this felt like at the start of the match, both of them wanted to win. And at the end of the match, both of them wanted to get their hands on each other. Whereas if they just wanted to get their hands on each other so bad it was a count out from the start of the match, that wouldn't have made sense. There was no reason for it.
That's not what I mean, though. What I mean, though, is as the match built, like, it didn't feel like as the match built, so did the intensity. It felt like it was just a match all the way through. For me, it just like, and they're on
I disagree. I felt the intensity build, but I can see what you're saying, that almost you wanted the peak of intensity to be higher.
Yeah, exactly. I wanted it to be like they're pulling each other apart. So this next match will then be them trying to get to each other. Go on, Jeff.
Thank you. Live, the crowd were into it. Live, the crowd thought this was excellent. And that is verified by the fact that at the end of the match, the crowd were chanting, "Let them fight, let them fight." I think this leads to something really, really special.
Well, like I said, that was me being like overly critical.
Yeah. I get that old man yells at cloud. But what I'm trying to say is that the crowd were into it, and there's no question that they worked hard to put on something really, really special. It goes to show how well the PCW and MCW partnership is working. And it's really, really thrilling. It's really thrilling.
And I think that kind of Todd's comment there was on the specifics of this match and not the use of this match to build the storyline that's coming forward.
Oh, absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
Because especially when we're talking about Erica and Aisha, two people who, as Nick Galea have said in the chat, are really good at connecting with audiences. And as well, Nick Galea mentioning, nice to see two women from Melbourne wrestling a match. Like, excellent stuff. This is the start of this storyline. It's the start of this program. We're not expecting them to go all out in match one. But if this is going to be kind of a blood feud situation of, I don't care about the result, I care about ripping that woman's head off of her neck, then this match could have served with a little more intensity towards the end so that it was clear they weren't just ignoring the count. It was that they didn't care about the count because they were more interested in attacking each other.
They didn't realize what the count was because they were too busy. And that didn't seem to be what that was when the count was going off. Like from watching it from home, that's what it felt like, because she was just on top of her while I think it was Aisha was on top of Erica while Erica was just strewn across seats, and she didn't really even try to get into the ring. She was too busy doing this. And that to me isn't really, that's not intensity. That's like you're still trying to get your gimmick over.
That's fair.
Which is at that point, it should be like, nah, fuck you, bang, 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 referee counts. They work themselves up to that point. So when they're separated, the next time that these two get together, that's when they go, that's it, we're fucking all out. And if that ends in a pinfall, or if that ends in another schmoz, we go, okay, we need some sort of a rule here where this match is going to end. Then that, you know what I mean? That's breadcrumbs leaving there. That's what I meant by that.
Okay. No, I didn't entirely disagree with you. I was just putting forward the life perspective.
Yeah. No,
I also think that
understand.
The intensity actually came through better in the post-match little section that we had with, Dad coming out as the general manager to split them up, and they're still going each other, still trying to jump over everyone that's in the way to get to each other. That's the kind of intensity that we're looking for to show, oh, these two just want to absolutely take each other down.
Yeah. And I hope if this continues, there's more people that come out next time.
Yeah.
So it's
having only two to hold them apart was,
Yeah.
But again, if we're using that to build the intensity, if we're using this as a starting point so that we can see how intense it seems at the end, then that can work to its advantage as well.
Yeah.
Moving on from here, and as much as we could get criticism from Mick Moretti for this, I cannot remember Ryan Rapid and Blake Malik's new name, Snap and Crackle, and he rechristened them during the match or something.
Yeah. No,
the less said, the better, I think.
Yeah, I didn't catch that either, to be honest with you. I was trying for the life of me to remember their names today, and I couldn't.
Yeah, but with some help from Blake Malik, Ryan Rapid ended up defeating Wake in this one. Jeff, what was this one like in person?
Hot. Really hot. It was loud. It was raucous. It was a lot of fun. It was a 5-minute sprint match, really. And what they did in 5 minutes was great. They used their time so wisely, the two of them. They're obviously very familiar with each other from PCW. And Wake can take a pinfall loss and it won't hurt him a bit. He is very, very popular with all crowds. And Ryan Rapid is so smooth and so very good that it's just good to have him anywhere on an MCW show. This was a lot of fun. Yeah, it wasn't particularly, there wasn't a lot of ring psychology in it, but it was such fun.
But the lack of ring psychology in this match is the ring psychology, right? It's the purpose is that these guys are not here to, see if they can outmaneuver one another. They're beating the tar out of each other at 100 miles an hour. That is the point of their characters.
Yeah, it probably was, but it was just such fun.
Yeah, Todd?
Look, I think Ryan's better than this. I just do. I understand the argument, the discussion we had the last time when we talked about this, but I just see him standing out. Whereas, like, it very much was, if you wouldn't have heard it, Jeff, because you didn't have the commentary, it was very much him, like Moretti, like saying that these are my minions type thing. These are the guys that I'm molding. Whereas, like, it's hard for me to explain. I don't know how to really like put it into words.
The commentary felt more like he was saying he was teaching them and raising them type of thing. It didn't seem like, hey, I'm in charge of these guys. It felt like I see the potential for these guys to be at the very top, and I'm giving them those last skills that they need.
Yeah, but we also know what Mick is like as a character because we saw that promo later on with the team because he knew that Barry O'Leary was the most malleable one mentally, voted him the leader because he goes, all right, now listen to what I say. Like, that's what Mick does. He's going to say, I'm teaching you guys. I'm teaching you guys. I'm teaching you guys. Whereas I just don't think where at the end of the day, when it comes to a big match for him, they're going to be fodder for him.
Okay, so get the popcorn out, Jeff. Sorry, Todd. I'm struggling to understand. Is the problem that Mick is saying that they're minions, or is the problem that he's not saying they're minions, you think they're minions because you know Mick Moretti?
The second. The second one it is. But it's also it's not so much that. No, just let me finish, right?
Okay.
It's not so much that. It's mere the fact that I think that Ryan is better than that role. I think there are other people that they probably could have used in MCW in the training facility and that probably could have fit that a little bit better than someone who's pretty much already molded, like has a fully fleshed out character, like in Ryan Rapid, like in PCW. That's a pretty decent over character. So this is what my point is. Like, I hadn't really heard of Malik before this. So that was like my perception for that is I don't really have. So that role for him, that's good because I'm going to get to know him over the time. I already know how good Rapid is. And I feel that, do you know what? I don't know, I'm probably not explaining.
So I hear what you're saying, Todd. I think just the point that you're getting across is not the point that I thought you were getting across, right?
Oh, okay.
Because what it sounded like you were saying is that, these two shouldn't be minions. What you're saying is this is such a great opportunity and a great spot for someone who needs to get in front of people's eyes, whereas Ryan Rapid could have just been on the show as Ryan Rapid and there wouldn't have been a problem.
Yes.
And so
exactly.
In giving Ryan Rapid this role, you've wasted the opportunity to have someone who could fit this role really well and benefit from it.
I think that there are probably people that are maybe not as ready for prime time as what Ryan is that could have probably benefited from him more.
Yeah. Yeah, we've got Andy PW in the chat laying it down. As someone who only watches MCW live, so without commentary, none of Shadow Alley makes sense. There were two key promos where the audio was fucked that was never heard in the crowd, and this connection with Malik and Rapid hasn't really been explained to us. This was an okay match, but the Moretti stuff is dying a death live, says Andy PW.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Yes, it absolutely is, Andy.
So how do they solve that?
I think the way to solve it is really, really quickly have Snap and Crackle like turn on Moretti and claim themselves as Ryan Rapid and Blake Malik. They don't need to team together. and then Moretti becomes like a lone soldier. He goes crazy because of this, because Moretti pulls crazy off really well, more crazy. And then he just becomes a heel lone soldier, and you slowly,
but
like, you do what you want with Malik and Blake.
Part of the reason this storyline exists, though, I'm sorry to interrupt you there, Jeff, is that the possibility for having Mick Moretti as someone who can raise someone up, because he is an extremely experienced wrestler. He's behind the scenes a great trainer, so anyone who knows that is able to add that into the story, right? And if you look at what he's doing over in PWA, which, hey, if you're listening live, we'll be talking about soon, and if you've downloaded this as a podcast, we'll be in the next episode of the podcast as we talk about Coliseum. If you look at the Joker and the Thief, what he's doing for Jimmy Townsend is exactly the role that you can give a character really serious growth with someone like Moretti. And this is kind of going against what you're saying as well, Todd, because I would argue that Jimmy Townsend is also someone who had an established character, knew where they were. The crowd was already behind Jimmy Townsend, but putting him in this role to be mentored by Mick Moretti has actually really benefited him, to show that he's someone who is young and is good, but needs to be refined. And Moretti is giving him that refinement. And I think the same thing could be happening with Shadow Alley, but I feel like the execution is nowhere near as clear.
Yeah, we'll talk more about the Townsend thing in the next thing, because I do have thoughts on that. I think Ryan is better than the role that he's in at the moment. I understand what they're doing with it, but I think that they're trying to introduce him through Mick. I don't think necessarily with Ryan, because he has been such a sort of like a homegrown, like, Melbourne product through PCW that necessarily is needed. Malik, I have no problem with him being in that group. I have no problem with him being in that group. I feel that there are probably other guys that could have been in that spot, and Ryan could have just been on his own, like forging a path, like a few other guys that they've got in that, like, coming up. Do you know what I mean? Thank you, Keanu. Ryan should be there with Jarvis and Eman. I completely agree with.
And like the argument that's exactly right. You look at Jarvis, you look at Eman, you look at the fact that Wake has been on these shows, right? Wake is in exactly the same situation. It's not like, we need to use someone to introduce Wake. Obviously, he's more experienced than Rapid, but I don't think he's much higher in the pecking order than Ryan Rapid in the Melbourne scene.
Thank you. That's exactly what I mean, Nick. Thank you. Rapid can stand on his own. Malik is a work in progress. I see it as giving Rapid showtime and elevating Malik by association. And that's the only issue I have with that, Nick, is that maybe it's not so much as Malik being elevated as Rapid being de-elevated to a Malik level, if that makes sense. Whereas I really feel like Ryan could stand on his own, like, comfortably. Sorry, Jeff, you're shaking your head.
Yeah, I don't really agree with the de-evaluation thing. I think that, they'll keep Ryan Rapid in this team for as long as convenient. And then, get him away from those two and see how he goes. I think it's a temporary thing. I certainly don't see it lasting till this time next year.
Nick Galea earlier said to me, I see this as an attempt to do similar to the Joker and the Thief story, but in reverse. Start with the characters corrupted instead of vice versa. Now, if we jump off that thought, and I really like what Nick Galea said there, especially with the way that Moretti appears. And like, Moretti is not a good guy, but he's not a villain. He's just kind of a goofy jerk, right? Whereas it feels like what we're looking at here in the form of Ryan Rapid and Blake Malik is something that is more sinister, and something that as soon as they sense weakness in Moretti, they're going to pounce on it. And I think that maybe if we hold off for a second and see if that happens in the near future, because I could see that happening within the next 3 shows type of thing, where all of a sudden they go, thanks for all the fish, Mick, and then turn on him, and we see a more friendly side of Moretti, because clearly the heels are already there in force in MCW. We got plenty of heels that can work at a high level. we can have Mick go back to the face side and have that be a way for Ryan Rapid and Blake Malik to put their stamp on MCW by taking down someone established. As well, Keanu's put a really interesting idea in the chat. Do Ryan and Malik join Dusk when they turn on Moretti?
But isn't that just jumping from one leader to another?
Yeah, I don't like that, Keanu, only because I think that we want Ryan Rapid, but almost as a solo act as quickly as possible. As people who've seen Ryan's work, his stuff in RB4K with Aisha was just spectacular. So maybe it is time that you know, I wouldn't put him under the wing of anybody. I'd let him be Ryan Rapid.
Yeah.
Nick Galea says that I could offer a heap of ideas, but there's probably too much comic nerddom in wrestling in 2023. That does feel a lot like what this storyline could devolve to. And for the comic nerds out there, may I recommend the new run of Transformers by Daniel Warren Johnson? That's the B cover there, you can see.
Nick's just made a lovely point, and it's nice that there's a discussion on a bunch of new Melbourne guys again beating that drum. Ha 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 ha. Yes, indeed, Nick. Look, I think it's wonderful as well. I think that
in defense of
these guys,
but in defense of MCW for this, Nick, you don't think that that's maybe what MCW have been waiting for the last X however many months we've been complaining about it? They've just been, look, these guys aren't ready yet. When they're ready, we're going to unleash them, and they're going to be good.
Todd, your argument was just that Rapid is ready.
No, and that's what I'm saying. That's why he's on fucking shows now, you numpty. I was like, that's why when we're saying like a while ago, that's why he's been saying like that they haven't been put on earlier in the year because maybe they didn't feel like they were ready. Now they feel like they're ready. They're unleashing them, and it's working. Is what I'm saying.
But if that was the idea, then how long did we have the guys under clown masks that were theoretically Rapid and Malik who were being ready to be revealed, right? Like, did they really need those extra? Maybe they did need those extra few months of polishing. Maybe they did. But
that's what Fusion's for. That's what the pre-show's for. Is to give those guys some and so they can see them in front of a crowd and see what they're like.
All right. Well, look, if we're going to keep talking about the ascent of people in Melbourne, I think it's time to talk about Jarvis, right? Jarvis was the Intercommonwealth champion and the MCW women's champion, and he lost both to Delta. Jeff, tell us about the feeling in the room when Delta became the women's and Intercommonwealth champion.
I'm going to go on record to say it's one of the loudest and most sustained pops I've ever heard. Like, it went on and on and on. I do have a brick bat about this that I'll bring up after the main event rather than this one. This was just fantastic live. Jarvis is so hot as a heel, and Delta has like a raw charisma. There's no other way to put it. The crowd love Delta so much wherever she goes. It's not unique to Melbourne. It's consistent in Sydney, in Adelaide, in Brisbane, and over there in Perth. Delta is just such a hot property. This match was so much fun. It wasn't particularly long, but boy, was it fun. And they did everything they had to do, and they did it really, really well. I'm wondering what they're going to do with Jarvis now. But, yeah, just a wonderful, wonderful moment. And it was really good, and the crowd were right into it.
Nick Galea has just said, as someone who watched this show and Coliseum live, this was the best match on all three shows for me. I really enjoyed this match. I felt like it was the least dominant Delta has looked in one of these matches for a while, which felt interesting because it felt like Jarvis has always just been straight up sneaky and cheating to be overcoming Delta before, whereas here he was sneaky and cheaty enough to get the upper hand, and then he out wrestled Delta while he had the upper hand. He maintained the upper hand, and I don't know exactly how I feel about that, because at the end of the day, Jarvis is a good pro wrestler, and that has to be part of his character as well, or else he's just this little shit who keeps cheating his way into top spots, and you can't maintain that forever. So it is important to see him as someone who can wrestle. But the point of this match was to be the moment for Delta, surely. And you can see Keanu saying that Delta is going to get the women's #1 spot again this year for Aussie women. Nick Galea saying the match should have gone on last. Andy PWDU asking if it's the MCW match of the
I'll
year.
talk about that later.
Yeah,
Andy asked me if it's MCW's match of the year. Certainly, in terms of live and just the crowd being right there, I would absolutely agree with you. But the year's not over. They've still got one more show, so let's.
I remember not watching this live, but looking at social media live, and there was that clip of that little kid watching that match when Delta went over, and I sent that clip to one of the bookers for MCW and said, "Mate, that tells you that you're doing your shit right. When you get that genuine reaction out of a kid who, like, that kid just found a hero in Delta."
Oh yeah.
And one thing I will say about Delta, right, is like, I see that look, the style, the look that Delta has on a lot of women, like, around the world. She pulls it off, whereas I believe it.
Yeah.
A lot of them, I'm like, okay, that's your gimmick, blah blah blah. With Delta, I kind of believe that. Like, I kind of believe that she can do that. And to answer your thing, Lachlan, about Jarvis getting more offense in, it's because I think that over the time he's worn her down, so he knows her weaknesses. So over the time, he's like, I know that if I attack her knee, I can get a bit of. So that was the idea of it. He's still been sneaky, but he's just been, like, smart about it, which I think was good. Nothing he did was ever like,
no,
I don't think he could do it. Do you know what I mean?
I think my complaint was more that, and I'm sorry to be coming in over the top of you here, Jeff, I wanted more, just a little more of Jarvis is a coward to come through in this match. I felt that he was an asshole. I didn't feel so much that he was a coward.
Yeah, but you can play a coward only so much, where then, like, you can be a coward until you know you've got the upper hand. That's when you're brave. When you've got when you feel like you've got the upper hand, that's when you're brave.
But I felt like we could have just had 10 seconds of him running away on the outside, an extra in that match that would have gone, oh, he's running away until he can get that upper hand. And if that had
didn't he do that at the start?
Little bit more, he did. I wanted to see it a little more. It's just all I'm saying.
You see, now I think there's something more than just he knows her tricks and he knows, like, he's worked her out that way. I think it's also showing this strange thing about adrenaline, because when you finally get your hands on something you really want, there's a shot of adrenaline and then you kind of diminish pretty quickly. And I think this was saying that, you know, Delta wanted this so much to get her hands on him so much that there's a key of exhaustion there. And they played on that as well. I think it's a really clever match. I think it's well booked and well put together. And kudos to the writing team and everybody. It'll be interesting to see what happens to both titles now. But I absolutely think there's complete logic in Jarvis being able to out-wrestle Delta for a few minutes at least.
And let me be clear. This is the most picky I can be because I'm looking for something to start conversation. This match was superb.
The one thing I will say about the end is that I feel like she didn't need to have to throw that extra F5 in. I feel it would have been a little bit more crisp if she'd have caught him. F5 pops up, like he popped back up, spear, pin. I think that just would have been a little bit more impactful.
I like the character touch of, you're absolutely right. She didn't need the extra F5, but to me, she wanted to give him another F5.
Yeah.
That wasn't about what it takes to win the match, because I think he's down after one F5. But then she throws another one and a spear because fuck you, Jarvis.
Yeah.
Yes.
I get what you're saying. I just think after the visual of her catching him in midair for the F5, like, I understand exactly what you're saying. I completely understand it. Like, for fluidness is what I'm saying. Because the crowd were already up. and you didn't get them any more up by throwing that extra F5 in, they were just still up because they were going to pop as soon as they counted the 3.
But I also think it's that thing of it's the guarantee. It's Taker giving somebody a tombstone twice. It's, you know, the double arm DDT twice from Foley. It's that I want to make sure this little prick is down and done and dusted. I want to make sure there's no excuse, no comebacks.
I get you, but like I said, that's me just being extra, like in a
we're all on the same page here that this was really well done, and clearly from the crowd response, it did what it was meant to do, and you can't argue.
I will say that someone behind the scenes of MCW came up to me in the break and went, "Did you hear that fucking pop?" And I went, "Yeah." He's like, "I'm so pleased for her," and so was I. Look, you couldn't not be. It was great fun. It was great fun.
Andy mentioning a great point, loved the callbacks to their previous matches with feet on the ropes and it taking more than one F5 or more than just an F5 all along to keep him down. Great point there, Andy. And Nick Galea saying that Jarvis is someone that will sell me on going to a show. Really keen to see how he goes 1v1 against Robbie at Renegades next month. That matchup of Jarvis and Robbie just seems like the perfect heel face matchup.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so can I just be a little bit of a
little bit of a Todd? Yeah, go on.
A little bit of an admonisher right now, okay? So was it 3-4 months ago when Jarvis first won that title, that women's title? How many people do we have complaining about him winning that title? There's not enough women in the thing. Why are you doing this? Why are you putting it on the guy? Why are you doing it? What happened when you let the story play out?
Okay, can I jump in here?
Yeah, go for it, my friend.
I speak about my partner occasionally because my partner enjoys wrestling but doesn't watch it a whole lot. I was watching this show like post Coliseum, and she'd come to Coliseum with me and really enjoyed it. Was watching this to, talk about it on the podcast, and my partner came in during this match, watched it for about 5 minutes and went, "And this is for the women's title." And I went, "Yep." And she went, "MCW is like one of the biggest companies in Australia, right?" And I went, "Yep." And she goes, "That's embarrassing."
Why?
Like,
why? How is it?
If you take
when you're looking at it as one match, maybe. When you're not looking at it as a whole story.
Yeah, but we are the people who watch the whole story, Todd, whereas there are plenty of people who are showing up for one show. And those are people that you've got to get into this product as well, right? And like my partner is someone who you want to be able to go, you should see this. You want her to get invested in it because you want her wanting to buy tickets. You want her to go, "Hey, Lachlan, we should fly down to MCW." But the snapshot of MCW that she saw is, oh, this dude is the women's champion.
Yeah, in a 5-second thing. Did she watch the match?
Yes.
And after the match, how did she feel?
Embarrassed that a man was the women's champion. Yeah.
That's kind of silly.
Yeah, it made her not want to go to MCW because she watched 5 minutes of MCW, and that 5 minutes had a man as the women's champion. And as much as I think the storyline was great and I really enjoyed it and the pop was huge, and like Cardo's coming in and saying the sellout after sellout suggests otherwise, and I get that, but I was part of saying we need to see where it goes as well. You're absolutely right, Todd, and you've said that all along. And I did agree that Jarvis is a great heel. The crowd was rabid to see it get taken off him. But we talked about optics last show, right? There's an optics element of that where someone can see this and go, that's not the kind of thing I'm into, and entirely pass on MCW. So as much as I think this match absolutely paid off what they've been doing for the last few months, we also have to acknowledge the fact that potential fans could have been really put off by that.
Yeah, but that potential fan is your partner, so she's stuck with it anyway.
Yeah, but how many... And the question kind of becomes reductive when the shows are selling out, so you can't get more people into the Thornbury. Yeah. But then the question is, if you have the potential to get bigger, is this an angle that allows the company to get bigger?
But here's the thing too, like, and this is just like devil's advocate.
I'm sorry to
right?
interrupt. Cardo in the chat says potential fan, they sell out. That you know that people can buy it on Fight, right? Like you want people watching on Fight, and then if they do a show in a bigger place, there are more tickets to sell. Like as good as the Thornbury is not the only arena they could put a show on.
Okay, so here's me devil's advocating, right? So say that she watches the next show and Delta comes out as the Intercommonwealth champion. Is that embarrassing because it's a woman holding a men's title? That's
never been a men's title.
Always, because there's never actual men's fucking like things. Like
but
you and I both know that.
But here, and I'm going to bring something in, right? Which is what Keanu said with Sam Osborne did something similar against Jess with the PWA women's title, and it worked. Whereas I think it's really important that was called the PWWA title. So it was really, really easy to draw a line in a sand of he took a title from Jess. Whereas the storyline for this has been he is the women's champion. And the thing he was bragging about was being a champion for women. Right? That was the storyline, was that he was a fucking asshole and he was being a jerk by, standing on top of the women who he was claiming he was raising up. That was the storyline that they were doing.
The same thing.
And look, Andy PW says you're kind of re-prosecuting an intergender wrestling argument, which isn't that interesting. The point that I'm making is that there are people who absolutely did not like a man holding the women's title, full stop, and that's going to put them off. Right?
Yeah,
I'm not making any further point than that.
No. It could also be the thing that sells a ticket because they want to see him lose that title.
Yeah, and it seems that it has because they've been selling out. Right?
Yeah.
The point that I'm trying to get here is that when a storyline like this happens, you really have to consider, are the people who you are trying to sell the show to the people who are going to stick with this storyline? Or are you trying to sell this show to people who are not watching MCW month to month? And it seems like MCW is happy with the fan base they have and confident that the fan base they had would come with them for this story. And that's great. And we did. Right? But if you're in another situation where your arena is 3/4 full and the people you're appealing to are the ones who are not buying tickets month to month, and you're trying to bring them into the building rather than trying to sell tickets to the people who are already in the building, then maybe this is not the storyline to go with.
Go on, Jeff.
Right. Thank you. Lachlan, a lot of people watching MCW on Fight, because that is the common way to access it, will be wrestling fans who will watch the first part of this and go, I think I know what they're doing. I'm going to keep watching this and see if I'm right.
If you're watching it on Fight, they show the recaps before it anyway, so you know the story going in.
Yeah, I think and look, your wonderful partner, I don't know her. I've never met her. This is a really, really standard wrestling trope in a lot of ways, and I think it paid off beautifully. And I just think that the most people watching it would be smarter fans, if you like. And I'm not saying Mickey's not, sorry.
No.
But I think that will sort of give it a little bit of permission.
But that's not the point I'm making at all, Jeff, and I fully agree. And there are people in chat agreeing with me. Agreeing with you guys. Andy PWDU said there are 600 people exploding every time Delta's in the ring. I don't believe there's an argument that this is a bad thing. And there's not, because that's not the point I'm making. I am not saying that this was bad. I am saying...
No, I know that.
No, I am saying to anyone who is listening to this podcast, who is watching what we're saying, and us praising the way that they have used this storyline to make an incredible pop for Delta, like you're saying, Jeff, one of the loudest and most sustained pops you've ever heard in your life.
Yeah.
The answer is not, let's have a dude beat up women and take their title, right? Because this storyline was more considered than that. And it was to play to a crowd who was more invested than watch a show, see how it goes. If I like it, I'll stick around. If I don't like it, I'll leave. Right?
Yeah.
This was to play to a crowd of people who are already invested in MCW, already invested in these characters, already knew who Delta was because they watched her wrestle Jessica Troy in an Iron Woman match and know that she can go and know that if she got her hands on Jarvis, she'd rip him apart, right? For those people, this is a storyline that was brilliant and paid off. I'm saying that it is not something that it is possible to copy and paste to any wrestling situation and be a, inverted commas, good story, because it has the possibility of putting a lot of people off what you're doing. And if it's mishandled, which this wasn't, it could go very poorly.
Sure.
The point I'm trying to make here is we were in the chat having this discussion for a long time, and I don't think the fact that it worked in this situation means we should have never been concerned about it. That's the point I'm trying to make.
That's fair.
I know, Todd, you don't agree, but that's because, Todd, you're a long-term storytelling guy. You've never been one for get them in the building for this show. You've been one for get them in the building so that they want to come back for the next show because we're not paying this off for 4 shows.
Yeah, because that's what wrestling should be, in my mind. Wrestling should be like, if you get them in the building, and then what the story is what keeps them in the building the next time, because they want to see what happens going forward. And like, my question to you,
okay,
yeah, my question to you is though, right, that Mickey is like your test subject, right? How many more people do you think would be exactly like her in that position? As opposed, like, out of 10?
Out of 10, I reckon 3 or 4.
That's a 30%. So 70% of people aren't going to worry about that, is what you're saying.
30% of wrestling. Are you talking like random people off the street?
Yeah.
I reckon it's like 8 are bothered by it.
Yeah, see, I respectfully disagree with you.
Keanu's point in the chat, a lot of fans don't like intergender full stop. Like, what we're talking about here is you have to remember, and it's really easy to forget this, we are really entrenched in this, right? There are a lot of people who don't watch wrestling who, when you tell them, oh yeah, a dude is wrestling a woman, they get really upset by that. They're like, oh, that's like domestic violence, rah, 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 rah. And there's been plenty of relitigation of that conversation. We don't need to go into it. But the point is that a lot of people don't like it. They don't like intergender wrestling, full stop. So then you add in he took the women's championship. I think there are a lot of people who would not like that at all.
Okay.
Because it's the people that are getting in on Wrestle Radio Australia, right? 99 out of 100 of them are going to watch the storyline to its conclusion. The random person on the street whose friend told them to come to a wrestling show, that's the person that may not.
Yeah, but what I'm saying to you is that person that's dragged their friend and thing, they're going to fill them in on the storyline, aren't they?
Yeah, but I filled Mickey in on the storyline, and she was still like, yeah, but I don't like that a dude's the women's champion.
Well, maybe you're a bad storyteller. Anyway, let's move on.
Well, yeah, absolutely. No, I totally agree with what you're saying, Todd, and I think that this is going to be a difference of opinion. All of the D coming in here saying, I know I'm coming into this part way through, but are we talking strictly intergender or mixed tag options here? All of the D, basically, this is a storyline that we've been talking about for months, where a dude became the women's champion, and it went back and forth where we knew if the woman could get her hands on the dude, she would take that title back. But he was real slimy about it and got out of every opportunity and was a real jerk. And the conversation that we're having boils down to the storyline here was really well done, and it ended in a huge positive. And anyone who followed the storyline got that catharsis at the end.
Well, anyone that actually thought that Jarvis was going to walk away with those titles,
no one thought he was.
Wrestling full stop. Do you know what I mean?
But also no one thought he was going to walk away with the Intercommonwealth title until that they announced that it was a dual championship match, right? Like, this was a storyline that was well told over a period of time. And I think those are really important, and this one was done really well. And I hope that other people don't try and just crib it and go, we make a man the women's champion because that gets heat. because that's not what this was. This was a well-told story where a slimy heel got one over on a powerful babyface until the babyface was able to get their hands on him. Right? That's the point I'm making. Nicolia says, depends on context. That show had a lot of kids and families and they went nuts for it. I don't think it's going the intergender full-time direction a la PWA. It's more as the story arises. Delta in this case is the exception, not the rule. I feel like that is probably true, Nick. And that brings back to a conversation earlier, which we'll ask now. Do we think Delta is unifying these titles?
Yes.
Okay, I was going to say, Jeff just...
Thanks for your contribution there, Jeff. Jeff's popping out for a minute with that definitive yes.
It's either that or she comes out in January, maybe, and gives the women's title up so that they can crown a new women's champion. Either way, it really depends. I think it depends on the depth of women that they think are ready for that show. I think Keanu said it best in the chat before. When you charge premium prices for an event, you probably
premium product.
Exactly. And if you don't think that the people are up to that, then I completely understand why they would do that. Why they would just amalgamate the titles and but if there are women coming through where they're like, okay, we got 5 or 6 girls here that can really, really go. We've got a division where we don't have to fly in 3/4 of our division every show, because in the end, it doesn't matter what money you're paying, you're still trying to make some money out of it. So it's not cost effective to fly people in every show. I know that's the typical answer for a lot of wrestling fans is I'll just fly in who's he what's it from every show. That's nowadays that's like a $600 investment before even paying a match fee.
Yep. And that's if those people are available on your dates.
Yes. So $600 is what? How much they charge per ticket? In the chat, what do they charge per ticket for MCW?
I can say that, let's talk PWA as a comparison point, because I believe it's fairly similar. To go to both nights of Coliseum cost $100 each. So about $50 per night. So
$50 per night. So that's what?
And that's for seated tickets. That's a fairly premium. Yeah, Cardo's saying 55-ish. So let's say 50 as a nice round number to make the math easier.
So for every say interstate you're bringing in, you need to guarantee that they're going to sell at least 6 tickets.
Yep. And you break even on the 6 tickets that they sell.
That's right. 57-ish for silver, 70 for front row. Yeah. So I mean, it's a hell of a gamble. It's a hell of a risk when you look at it, because really, honestly, and I'll throw this to the chat. Who do you think in the chat in Australia is a ticket mover? Somebody that you can say, this guy's coming to the show. This guy's coming to the show. You're guaranteed to sell X amount of tickets. And this is I have a lot of friends in Australian wrestling. I really don't think there is that many at all, if any, that you can put on a poster and go, this guy's coming to the show. And you're guaranteed to sell.
I'll clarify the question, because someone in the chat said before, it's now at a point where Jarvis will sell a show for me. If they see Jarvis on the show, then they'll go. And that's true for the kind of people that we are, right? If Jess Troy is on a show that is driving distance, I'm going to it, right?
Yep.
But I don't necessarily think putting Jess Troy on a poster in the middle of Circular Quay is going to get people showing up to a show.
So Robbie Brooks. See, Jamie Apps Media says Robbie Brooksy, Charlie. I push back a bit on Charlie. Charlie's a hardcore fan. Yeah. But a hardcore fan is probably already coming to the show.
And then look at Cardo, because Cardo actually said no one. And then Cardo said, think about All-Star or BCW, because these are promotions that, and I hope I'm not speaking out of turn here, I don't think those promotions sell as many tickets as an MCW or a PWA, right? But those are promotions that are just flying down Vikingo. If people on posters are moving tickets, then BCW would be the most attended show around, because they get internationals regularly. So the result is, look, and Pegs, as much as I love Peg's opinion here, who says Robbie, Brooksy, Jess, Troy, Mitch, Ryder, that's because Pegs is my friend who I've introduced to wrestling, and they've fallen in love with Mitch Ryder, right? As much as I love Mitch, you don't sell a ticket by putting Mitch on a poster. And he would not be offended by me saying that. That's not the way it works in Australian wrestling.
Okay, I think that we're spoiled. Look, the three, as in the three of us, are spoiled. We get to see a lot of great wrestling. We can, me down here, I'm lucky enough to be able to get my way into most things and just watch them and enjoy them. The people I will go the extra mile for are Delta, Aisha, Slex, Brooksy, and Emmett. They're the guys I go the extra mile for.
The thing you might have missed.
I'm omitting Robbie. Hang on, Todd. I'm omitting Robbie because Robbie is not here enough to really judge on. But when he is here, I like to watch him. Sure.
You jumped out for a minute, and what I was saying was, because we were talking about the women's division, right? And I was just talking about that they have to make sure they've got a strong enough women's division in Melbourne that they don't have to keep flying people in, because that is a cost prohibitive thing.
Yeah.
Which led to the discussion of, like, really, who could you put on your show that you can guarantee to sell? What was it, 6 tickets? Did we say?
We're estimating on you need to get 6 additional ticket sales because this person's on the show.
Okay, well in that context, that then changes things. Sorry, I thought you were meaning who would you leave the house to really go and see?
Yeah,
that's such an unknown quantity. I can tell you now for MCW who people are going to see just by their audience reaction. And, I'd almost certainly, Armstrong is approaching that reaction. Jarvis, Delta, obviously Robbie.
But then you're also talking local market as well right there, Jeff, whereas part of what we're talking about is, here's a pitch. If you fly Delta up to Brisbane and you put Delta front and center on a poster for Brisbane Wrestling, does that show sell more tickets by virtue of Delta being there? And as much as I love Delta, I don't think the answer is yes. Everyone who goes to the show is going to rave about Delta. Everyone who already knows and loves Delta is probably already going to that Brisbane Wrestling show that is going out of their way to get Delta, right? You're probably not moving additional units by virtue of this person being on the poster. And this was all leading back to the ability to get interstate people on a show and it being worthwhile. Like, is it worth paying for someone's flights to be on a show? Here's like a great point with Keanu here. Did QWA sell more with Robbie and Kosei? And I can see Todd shaking his head. Not
really. It wasn't. Put it this way: they weren't hanging from the rafters, because I don't know how many people even knew. Like, well, this is just a anecdotal thing, right? When they advertised at the show before, they said Robbie Eagle's name. Nobody really said anything. They said Kazai Vegeta's name. They popped because they thought, oh, it's an international guy. They didn't know who he was. They didn't know anything about him. Just, they're bringing it internationally. That's, you know what I mean? It's just that I honestly think, and this is not a shot on Australian wrestling talent at all, because I think we have per capita the most talented set of wrestlers in the world.
We're called Wrestle Radio Australia for a reason, right?
Yeah, yeah. None of them putting them on a poster is selling an extra ticket, because unless you're already a fan of Australian wrestling, you don't know who they are. It's an unfortunate fact. That's why places like World Series Wrestling sell so many tickets quickly, because people know who they are. People already know who these people are. The hope is that when they see the Aussie guys on those shows, they go, well, we should check out that local show because that guy was really good.
Yeah. And Keanu's exactly right. The people that Joe on the street is going to buy a ticket to see is Roman Reigns or Cody Rhodes. Like, and even then, you're talking to a niche crowd, right?
Yeah, hang on.
I'd like to see how many tickets or extra tickets that Buddy sells.
That is a great question.
It'll be interesting to see of of particular interest is the fact that the next show, I think it's December 3 or December 10, is on a Sunday afternoon, which may impact slightly the crowd. It is the finale for the year, so either way, it's going to be something.
Look, this has been a great conversation.
It's really a shit time to try and sell tickets, I think.
December sucks. This has been a great conversation, but we do need to move on. So since we're already speaking about TMDK, Robbie and Kosei, let's talk about their match with the Natural Classics, Stevie and Tom Philippe. What did you think of this one, Jeff?
I liked about 20% of this match, and I didn't like 80% of this match. I think that the Natural Classics are really pushing it as a tag team now. It's time for them to either shit or get off the pot in breaking up. They can't stay together because the crowd just no longer buy them. They're just exhausted from them, or the new gimmicks are so bad that the crowd just doesn't want a part of them, which, it could go either way. In ring, amazing. Gimmicks need work, and on the mic, boy, do they need work. But this was just not. Yeah, it was a shame. It was a shame. The crowd were visibly dropped through that.
The good thing about this match is that it didn't really have to rely on personality to get it over.
Yeah.
And that's the nicest thing I'll say about it, because they're amazing wrestlers. They're amazing wrestlers.
Oh, yeah.
Off air, I call them the Beige Brothers because I just don't see anything in them. It's the color beige. It doesn't make me excited. It doesn't make in ring. Once the bell rings, they're the opposite of some people, where you say they're a great wrestler until the bell rings. Like Stevie and Tom are great wrestlers when the bell rings. It was a great match. It was a great match. You can tell that these guys are they did their time at Fale, so they know that Japanese style as well. So that really worked well with Fujita, because he's still that dude's still young. He's still finding his feet, which is amazing to see.
24 or something?
Younger than that, mate. He's 21. He's only just turned 21. So that's
disgusting.
The guy and having Robbie in there really helped, and having Robbie with Kazai really helps because
Keanu's just mentioned that the match at Tamashii wasn't anything special either.
Yeah.
So
I do know that that match in Tamashii, that was in a building that had a low roof, so that cuts out a lot of offense when it comes to the Philippes and Robbie. Robbie's been around long enough that he can adjust to that shit and it doesn't really bother him. But I would have it a guess that it probably would have maybe thrown the Philippes being there. It's not and that's one thing I think maybe guys up here in Brisbane probably have a little bit of an advantage of, because we're constantly thrown into positions where there's low roofs, and so you learn to adapt to that stuff when you're constantly in places like the Thornbury, where you've got oodles of room, and the PC Dub arena, the Southeastern Entertainment Center, plenty of room. You get used to working one style, and it's hard to adjust when you're like, oh shit, you mean I can't do anything off the top rope here? Fuck, that's half of my offense.
I remember the video going around here in Brisbane when old mate Xander Sullivan went headfirst into a fan coming off the top rope. That's the kind of thing we've got to deal with, right? Busted a ceiling fan with his head because the roof was low and he went off the top.
Yeah, I'll show you that video in the break, Jeff.
It's a clanger, Jeff. You'll love it. James Cray says low roof, 5-minute cuddles on the mat. Let's go. I fully agree with the assessment of the Philippes are a little bit of a Festus and Festus tag team, in that once the bell rings, the character turns on, right? But it wasn't enough for me, because I was sitting there knowing how good these four guys are in the ring. So when they wrestled well, they were kind of cursed with their own talent, because I went, yeah, that looks like these guys wrestling, which is a shame. If anyone else had wrestled the quality of match that these four guys wrestled, I would have been blown away by it. But because it's Robbie and Fujita and the Philippes, I'm like, yeah, this is what they do. Right? Which meant that because I felt no real push from the storyline, because the only like character attachment that I really had here was Robbie's a real good guy. Like that was all I had going into this. So I didn't feel invested in the outcome, despite the minute-to-minute in-ring action being quite good.
And
Is that fair to say?
Keanu says, I wish the Felice would go to Japan. It would take them to the next level. Because they don't have to show that personality so much in Japan. That's just the thing. That's like, you couldn't really put them anywhere else, I don't think. I don't think they would, unless maybe it would help them if they went to America for a little bit, and maybe they would have to be pushed to do that sort of style, or what it is. I don't know how you solve a problem like the Philippe's.
Thanks, Maria.
Thanks. I thought you'd like that.
All right. Let's move on to, and I'll read my run sheet here. Quote, Robbie Thorpe and Rocky thing. Yeah, Rocky Monero announced the next show, and then Robbie Thorpe challenged him. How'd this play in person, Jeff?
It was really bad. Partly technological, and also partly the crowd didn't buy any of it. Yeah, look, a microphone was screwing up, and that's really unfortunate for Robbie. It just, he lost a little bit there. But and Robbie's great. Robbie's a good wrestler, and he's got a really strong charismatic streak. People love Rocky, but they had no reason to kind of care that Rocky's coming back at this point. They should have built that up a little more. They could have done.
Well, if Rocky was going to come back, you would have thought it would have been in that tag match, the Survivor Series match.
Yeah, I thought that it makes more sense to have Robbie and Rocky teaming next month. Rocky takes the fall. Thorpe goes ape shit, beats him up. Rocky comes back and says, I want to fight you the month after. It's a bit longer term storytelling because there was no reason to care about this. And you could feel it.
I love Rocky Monero. I think he's an absolutely fantastic worker. I'm excited to see him come back for a match. His retirement was less than a year ago. The three of us talked about the Stone Burial match, right?
Yeah.
It's not like he's been retired for 5 years and he's coming back. So yeah, there's a pop to see Rocky again, but it's not like something we've been waiting on tenterhooks for, because he only came into the general manager role a few shows ago, and that was kind of the announcement of his retirement, because beyond that, we just hadn't seen him post Stone Burial. So I think there's an element of maybe MCW is over anticipating how much this is a quote unquote Rocky comeback, because I was just in a situation where when watching this, I went, oh, well, Rocky can't accept the challenge because he's retired. And then Rocky said, you want to see me come back? And the crowd went wild. And I went, oh, okay, Rocky's back. Like, it didn't feel big.
Yeah, but see, I don't know if you're actually going to see him be back.
I don't believe it, right? That's the other thing here.
I think there's going to be something else happen. Like, Thorpe will come in, and there'll be some other guy with the name Rock. Do you know what I mean? Like something like that. It's got to be some sort of a swerve. I know them better than that they would just give away a Rocky match. They wouldn't just do that. I would have liked to see Thorpe come through and have a couple of preliminary matches to start with to maybe establish his character a bit more before doing this.
He's only been in like the Rumble, right?
I think so, yeah. Well, I don't think he's
been but even then they're sort of retconning that, which is fine. And going, he debuts. He's debuting.
Yeah.
We're unveiling the gift. Yeah.
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 I think it will be Rocky. I think it definitely will be Rocky, and I think it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. But I've been wrong before.
I would. You know what I would do? And this is just me. I would say when I said Rocky, I meant someone from the Stone Age. Here's Caveman Ugg.
Yeah, that's possible.
Yeah, Alex Firehart in the chat said Rocky Monero couldn't make it, so here's Rocky Romero. I would love to see Monero wrestle again. I think that it is going to be a match of, Monero versus Thorpe, but I don't think it's going to be a match. I think something is going to happen that stops the match from taking place after a collar and elbow tie-up, basically. This is going to lead to something else rather than this being the match that we're looking for. Anyway, time to move on to the main event. 5 versus 5, fight to survive. The team of Big Business with Adam Brooks, Caveman Ugg, Emin Usman, Slex, and Tommy Knight versus the Kings of Chaos, Barry O'Leary, Edward Dusk, Eli Theseus, Gabriel Eros, and Mick Moretti. This one ended, and I will tell you what I said at watching this, was it came down to Slex returning to the ring and then Emin getting eliminated. So it was Slex in a 2-on-1 situation. And I went, oh, this is interesting. It's Slex and Mick Moretti as the 2 of the final 3 in an MCW main event. That hasn't happened before. And then Eros got eliminated. And I went, oh, now we're down to Monero. We're down to Slex and Moretti as the final 2 in an MCW main event. Haven't seen that before. And then it went for a really long time again. And I know that those 2 are really good wrestlers. And I know that Rocky is, I keep saying Rocky, I've got Rocky on the brain now. I know that Slex is super over in Melbourne. So those long finishing sequences work in the building in Melbourne. They don't work for me. We always end up in these big multi-man matches where it's Slex and someone, and we get a full 5-minute stretch of Slex trying to put them away and missing the finisher and then hitting one finisher, but they kick out at 2 and then missing the finisher. And then he hits the finisher and then he hits the second finisher and then he gets the 3 and it's way. It's too long for me as someone who is not in the building.
Jeff, you were in the building. How did you feel?
I think the crowd were... Right, Slex was taken out early and the crowd went, oh, there was this audible sort of, we know what's going to happen here. You heard the crowd kind of go, we know what's going to happen here. So after Slex was taken out, the rest of the match, it wasn't shat on. It wasn't like a negative thing, but the crowd were audibly quieter. And I think that, we had just seen in the Rumble, we had seen Moretti against Slex for 5 minutes at the end of that match, as Lachlan has quite capably pointed out. We don't need to see that again. Why not put him in, if you're going to bring Slex back, why not keep O'Leary around and put him in against O'Leary? Because that would be such fun, and O'Leary comes close to doing it. Because that also elevates O'Leary at the same time. O'Leary is then a bit more of a player. So, I just kind of think that would have been.
If you're doing that, okay, and this is just me being, again, devil's advocate. If you're doing that and you're having O'Leary do that, does that build O'Leary or does that lessen Slex? When you're trying to build Slex up to Buddy.
I think it builds O'Leary. It makes him look.
And
great.
how did the Dusk Brooks thing go down in the crowd?
Quite well.
I was going to say Dusk was, as is often the case, maybe my favorite part of this match. Dusk is so apt at storytelling, and his story within the match of just wanting to hurt Adam Brooks and it not being about the match, it being about just wanting to put a little punishment into Brooksy and pulling him down off the ring and then getting himself disqualified by hitting him with the turnbuckle hook. Really, really good stuff, and sets him up as kind of someone that you don't want to deal with at all, because it's not about winning the match for him. It's about inflicting punishment. Keanu's there saying, gotta say, Dusk is everything. I love him so much. Dusk, man.
Dusk is running the risk. Not yet, but within 6 months, the guy's going to be a huge face because people will just start cheering him. We saw it. We've seen it with several people that we've spoken about in the past, that, you're so good at being a heel, you just become a face. People just start popping.
Here's the one thing I will say about, and this is just the makeup of the match. I feel like Ugg and Emin needed to be replaced by a babyface tag team. Do you know what I mean? Because it just seems like they were sort of added in, whereas the Pariah, they'd had something with Big Business. They had something with Tommy Knight and Slex, but pretty much that has been split up because Slex is going after the main gold here. So Tommy Knight's sort of like a spare part, really. Whereas like Emin and Caveman really didn't have anything going into this match, like stakes-wise. They had no real beef with anyone else in this match. Like I look, and like, who did they have beef with going into this match aside from just wanting to help? Do you know what I mean? Like I would if they could have found like a BDE or like something like that to build them into that being into that role. That was the only thing for me. I'm like, okay, so why? It was sort of like I understand why Barry was there because you're obviously trying to elevate him and bring him in, but. Why was he there?
I agree on Ugg. I feel like Ugg was there to pop a crowd that love Ugg, right?
Yeah.
As far as Emin goes, I think really they are looking to build Emin into a main event player here. And I think that having him be that underdog story of, oh my God, it's just me versus these giant guys, and him not giving up, him sending his all, and him getting some offense in was really, really good. I wanted there to be more of that to show that it's not just heart. He can do it. And I feel like the fact that he didn't manage to get just a little further in that run before Slex came back was a bit disappointing for me. I would have rathered have him somehow summon all the courage he's got, manage to eliminate Eros, and then have Theseus come in. The three of them just absolutely manhandle him as a way to show, with exactly the same play of what's happened there, you manage to get really over the fact that Emin will not give up no matter what. And even when it looks like he can't do it, maybe he can. And then you also get to have Slex back looking more damaged than he did come back looking, because Slex came back looking fine. Honestly, the fact that he was able to then take out two guys, including a full 5-minute Moretti mini match, I think
it wasn't really. Yeah, it wasn't really like Shawn Michaels Survivor Series.
No, it was not. So if it had theoretically come down to, Emin and Moretti, these are the last two people, and right now the Pariah are beating the piss out of Emin, so there's no way in hell. And then Slex comes back out of nowhere, and he's like, hey, match isn't over yet. I even think they could have had Emin be pinned and have the heels think the match is won, and then have Slex come out to be, I'm not cooked yet. That's what I guess I would have preferred.
I'm going to mention here that I think that this should have been the end of the first half, and Delta winning should have been the end of the show, because it so fit. It was a main event. It fit the story. My biggest problem with the Fight to Survive 10-man tag, and it was solid and it was great, is at the end, you don't really have a reason to come back. They didn't end the show with a big hook to come to the following show. And I know enough about wrestling to know that that's really important. So even if Lindsay, the announcer, had said, and next month, don't forget, Slex will be taking on our champion, buddy, in a great one-on-one match. Here's a quick video. That at least, and people might be leaving during that point, that at least gives you that reason to come back and that hook to come back. And that's partly why I would have, it doesn't matter that it would have tipped the hand that Delta was winning. Kato just said
everyone knew that she was winning.
Yeah. Everyone knew walking into the building that there was a 99% chance that she was going to win. So
she was $1 favorite, put it that way.
Yeah, and no one was leaving.
If she didn't win this one, then she was $0.0001 that there was going to be some cage match at the next show that she wins, right? There was no way the storyline wasn't ending with that. And this felt like time.
So I think that that's the only real criticism I've got of this show is that this would have been great to end the first half, and then you put Delta and Jarvis. Also, in hindsight, it was hard to come back from the Rocky thing. So, swapping those two, Delta and Jarvis, would have definitely had that crowd going off.
I actually think, and this is a weird thing to say, one of my favorite parts of this match was the heels electing a team captain promo that happened beforehand.
So good.
That was brilliant stuff. That's the kind of promo I want more of. That got over all of the characters where the four of them are standing there and Mick goes, well, who's team captain? They go, me, obviously. And Mick goes, all right, let's have a vote. They all vote for themselves, except Mick, who votes for Barry O'Leary out of nowhere. And then once they all leave, Barry says to Mick, I owe you one. And Mick goes, yeah, you do whatever I say. Is so good at getting Mick's character over there. So good at showing all of these guys as selfish jerks. And then after Mick leaving, Barry asking if he gets a boat because he's the captain. That's superb stuff. That's
so funny.
Yeah, I think that was my favorite part of this match was that promo.
So, Jeff, are all those promos played live?
Yes, and you can hardly hear them, but that one you could hear because, all the promos are played on the big screen live. And sometimes, depending on where you are, it's a bit difficult to hear.
Yeah, audio is a bit of a problem with these. But yeah, look, overall, I think that as much as we've got some criticisms of this show overall, I think the first half especially was really, really strong. And having the moment with Delta was super, super well-deserved for Delta. A show of how good Jarvis was in that storyline. Big credit to this show. So with that, let's talk about some chicken salad and some chicken shit. Jeff, do you want to serve up a big plate of chicken shit for us to start with?
Yeah.
While we're talking Melbourne wrestling.
While we're talking Melbourne wrestling. Hello, DMDU. You make me sick. You had an opportunity, and God knows, a lot of people were asking you to go away. And I understand if you're a deathmatch fan, I have nothing against deathmatch. For those listening, Todd is just like the other two have walked away from me. They're hiding. They just put me front and center.
I'm just telling you right now.
I have nothing against deathmatch. But yeah, I'm sorry, everyone. The other two are messing with me if you're listening to the podcast. I've got nothing against deathmatch, but I think that of late, you have proven to have no scruples, and we know that. We've seen evidence of very low scruples, and you are continuing to try and beat the drum of something that was long ago lambasted and very heavily criticized, not just by us, but by all Australian wrestling. You're ruining wrestling, not just in Melbourne. People are reluctant to come to shows because they don't know how they're going to get treated. And I think that you've got a lot to answer for. Saying that, if a certain person tries to send me a voice message tomorrow, I don't want to fucking hear it. I'm really, really angry. And I'm feeling like it's time for you to shut down or step the fuck up. And when I say step the fuck up, don't hire anybody who's allegedly dodgy. And if you know about it, don't fuck around for a year before you release that person. No more kids sitting in the front row. Don't ask fans for extra money. And if you do ask fans for extra money, do it through a legitimate crowdsourcing site. And if you don't make the money, pay them the fuck back. And don't take someone who's an Uber fan for granted. Because I'm tired and I'm sick, and I don't want to be crapping on about your bullshit anymore. I've had enough of DM fucking you.
So for anyone who's not aware,
please fill us in, Lachlan.
Yeah, and I will try to make this as down the middle as I can. Joel Bateman put out a statement yesterday saying that he would be moving away from DMDU. The plan was to shut down DMDU, but due to demand from both fans and people within the industry, he would still be stepping away, but passing the mantle on to a new management team. Specifically, Jem Stone is going to be the person leading the charge on DMDU from here on in. Within this post, he spoke kind of at length about the 3011 arena and the process of attempting to get an arena together and losing money on that, and specifically losing fans' money and struggles to repay that money, which were being attempted. This was... I want to be... And Cardo's out here. Why the hell would you want to use the name DMDU? Like the company name DMDU, why would you want that name?
One thing I do want to point out is that he did not refute anything we've been saying over the past 12 months. He said everything that's been said is true. So for all those people that defended them, for all those people that are saying, oh, you guys don't know what you're talking about, shut the fuck up. We did know what we were talking about. We know more than what we actually said, but we didn't say it because we were waiting for him to do the right fucking thing.
And I'll also mention that, and I want to be quite vague and broad here. When you know people in wrestling, you know things that other people don't know. And as much as there is an obligation to do the right thing, there is also an obligation to not make trouble for people who do not need trouble, right? There are a lot of people who have been affected by wrestling in a negative way, and to go out and say, hey, person X did Y, that doesn't help any situations, right? So I know, and I can speak to things that I have found out, for example, that Todd has made decisions on, knowing information that wasn't publicly available, and then that information becomes more known months and months later, and then I'm able to turn around and go, oh, that's why Todd did that, right? There are lots of things where we know stuff going on, and almost all of the time, if you see us up here complaining about something, and especially naming a company and saying that they're doing the wrong thing, it's because we know, right? And it's time for it to be called the fuck out.
Yep. Just sorry to interrupt you. You guys are seeing the tip of the iceberg. We get the whole iceberg. We really do. Yeah. We get the whole iceberg. I get it from several people. I get it from Todd. I get it from several others. They tell me the iceberg. And believe me, like the iceberg, it's going to hit soon.
Jamie Apps in the chat is also a man behind Australian Wrestling Cards, who was there with us saying, hey, these things need to be fixed. And I had a great conversation with him over the weekend where we basically said, look, for people like us, we know what's going on and we know the right thing to do. Right?
That's unfortunate. The thing is too, like, I could go out easily and go, oh, well, I heard this week. I heard this. I always like to make sure that the information I'm hearing is correct before just going out and saying it, because that's irresponsible. I'm not a Meltzer. I fucking won't do that. I want to make sure that everything that I'm saying I have backed up and I know what's going in. As for like seeing people congratulate Jem, and I've got nothing against Jem. She seems like a very, very nice person.
She's lovely.
I feel like people are congratulating someone for becoming the captain of the Titanic after it hit the iceberg. Do you know what I mean? Yep. Because one of the first things I saw from her was we're going to try, and the first order of business is to start to get everyone paid back and blah, blah, blah through doing shows and that. Now, if anyone's seen a show from DMDU in the past 12 months, they're not making any money.
They get 30 people a show.
So if you're not making any money, if you're constantly losing money, you're never going to pay these people back. It's it's an unwise business decision. I don't know. With the name that they have, outside of the deathmatch community, because I don't know if the deathmatch community either have heard everything that's going on or just don't care because it's deathmatch for life, baby. And so they're happy to defend it. But if you knew everything that was going on, I don't know how you still stand beside them.
Yeah,
I just don't. I honestly do not, because at the start, at the very start of DMDU, I do not like death matches. I've been very, very upfront with that. I'm not a fan of it. The promotion itself and the ideas that they had, the ethos that they had going into it, and the shows that were on, the matches that were on shows that weren't death matches, I quite enjoyed. So yes, I did have Joel on. We talked about it. We'd even debated about death matches because I'm very upfront with it. But I was there to support it. As soon as I heard out stuff was happening that was not part of what they said that we're going to do, that's when I was like, well, I'm not going to support this anymore because this goes against everything that we as a group, Wrestle Radio Australia, stand for, and that's promoting good Australian wrestling. I'm not going to send people somewhere where they can get ripped off. I'm just not.
Andy PWDU makes a good point. He says the deathmatch community have listened and they've made their mind up. It's why it went from a core of 150 people to 150, 200 people to a core of 30. I think that says a lot. And I don't think that's very funny, Alex. He said, we're going to raise money by spending money on shows bugger all people come to. It's foolproof. Look, I
and
wanted
again, this is nothing against Gem. This is nothing against Gem.
No.
And there's nothing against Gem.
I'm going to come in here with some positivity. It is really good to hear that there are people passionate enough about a style of wrestling that they love to want to keep pushing for something despite the blowback that it's gotten. Right? Mm-hmm. So to those people who really deeply love deathmatch wrestling, and this is something that means the world to them, and they are willing to fight through everything to have their deathmatch wrestling home in Melbourne, I have so much respect for that care and that love that they clearly have for wrestling. That's not the problem that we have here.
No.
The temerity and absolute gobsmacked fucking gall to treat fans and treat the industry that you claim to love the way you have has just I've completely lost faith in a friend, someone I considered a friend. I've lost faith in, and I hope he's happy. I really do. I hope he's happy because I'm just not going to come back. I'm just not going to speak to that guy again. And you know who I'm saying.
Yeah, he seems to be all right because it's there's been a promo put up today on some bloody site about him setting up a match with Vixen. So he might be stepping away from the thing, but he's not stepping away at all. I don't know. Yeah, exactly, Alex. I don't know why you would keep that. Just start something. If you are that passionate about having a deathmatch community in Melbourne, and it's not my flavor of ice cream, but if you love it, go for it. Do you know what I mean? I think that brand should just go away. Unfortunately, because of what it became.
If I'm more than happy for Deathmatch United Australia to show up and do things better, right?
Yeah.
And there are plenty of people who have been absolutely burned by DMDU who, if a show with a name like that showed up, they'd go to it because they love deathmatch wrestling.
Sure.
Right? We've got James Gray in the chat saying this is probably going to be a dumb question, but if under the new management they're able to redeem the brand, does it now turn this series of events into the old Booker or still the same name? Sorry, does it turn this series of events onto the old Booker or still the name that is tainted beyond repair? It's a good question, Craig.
I'm going to be honest with you. This very much smacks of Bateman leaving people holding the bag.
Yep.
Because I don't honestly, I don't know how much more money he owes people out of that 14K. Because I know there have been a fair few people paid back, but they were the people that were making noise. I noticed that every time somebody made noise, that person got paid pretty quickly afterwards. Like when I'm sorry, the Australian wrestling card. No, Australian wrestling cards.
Jamie.
Thank you. When Jamie put up that post about Kyle, that moved things along. When Beck, of course, who is one of the nicest people in Australian, nicest, kindest, most supportive people in Australian wrestling, had finally had enough where she said something, she got paid back. I don't know if they were just going to just stay quiet. If whoever stayed quiet was never going to get their money back. And okay, that's how many I've got left. You guys, I'm going to step away from management because I don't think I can do this anymore. You guys, here's everyone that is owed money. I'll see you later. It's his company still. He still owes the money.
Yep. So if you're still owed money, make noise.
Yeah.
Please.
Andy PWDU said that it should go away based on Joel's own post yesterday. They admitted that they're walking away from their values. So what do they stand for? And does it align with the fans who cared about their values? And then he followed it up and said, I was one of those people who was drawn to their values 3 years ago. And that's the sad. I never went down, but I loved the idea of a place where people could wrestle styles of wrestling that they were passionate about, because there were death matches and there were other styles of wrestling on the show. It was a place that preached about being an inclusive space. And I think that a lot of the people who are still attached to DMDU as a place and as a brand are the people who needed an inclusive space, and wrestling was able to fulfill that for them. And the fact that DMDU as a brand has done so much damage that those people who relied on having a space that they felt safe in are now...
It feels like those people were preyed upon.
Yes.
That's what it feels like to me.
And they're trying to shelter in a place that was built by the people who have hurt them. And that fucking sucks.
Here's the thing, though.
Sucks.
Here's the thing, though. We know he's a liar. So I struggle to believe anything he is saying. Like, then, now, forever. Where have I heard that before? But, you know, it's really, really tough to believe a word he's saying.
Yep.
Yeah. And is
this another whole show chicken shit, by the way? Have we done it again?
Yes.
Yeah, it is.
Yes.
Go
team.
Yeah.
Go team.
I told you this before we started filming, that this is what it was going to be.
Yeah.
So
all right. Do we want to be positive before?
Do you know what? No. Do you know what the thing is too?
No, we don't.
He knew that he'd been scammed a year ago. Roughly. Yeah. It took him a year to tell people. If that's not a fucking red flag, I don't know what is. Like, it took him a year because he tried to find every way out of admitting to everybody that this had happened to him, instead of just coming out straight away and going, look, this is what's happened. If he'd have done that at the start, maybe something could have been salvaged of it before he got himself into so much fucking trouble that he's resorted to all of this and hurt so many people.
If he'd used fucking Kickstarter when we were saying over a year ago, hey, maybe not crowdfund on your own website and use something that has protections for people, then maybe DMDU would still be a place where we go, oh, yeah, some things got fucked up and he lost some money, but there's still a good spot there for people.
Yeah,
right?
That's a very good point, Andy. Remember, they started selling tickets to Poor Decisions too, which was supposed to be exclusive to donors, after he now claims that they were scammed. So he knew that they were scammed. Maybe he thought by selling tickets he could start paying some of that back. I don't know. Like, this is completely me this is hypothesizing. It's just I'm gobsmacked that it's happened. I'm gobsmacked he keeps getting away with it and seemingly getting away with it scot-free.
Yeah. All right, I'm going to move on to some chicken salad now because it would not surprise me if we end up talking more about Deathmatch Down Under later as the podcast rolls on through the weeks. So let's talk about, and I'm sure Jeff's going to back me up on this one. How good was it to see Delta raise those titles? How fucking good was it?
Yeah, it was great. It was great. It was a lovely end to a great story. Just so well done, and kudos to the MCW bookers and stuff like that, because it was just great. It was just lovely.
Yeah. Again, not to go backwards, Andy PWDU said, so can we all call out one of their replacements having a crack at Jamie last week? Because should we all be concerned about we should be concerned about it going forward? A great point, Andy, and let's make the real strong point that, the people who are calling people out are going to continue calling people out because it's the right thing to do. So thank you to Jamie as well. But yeah, seeing Delta winning that title, becoming it was a great weekend for women's wrestling in Australia. And we'll talk more about that in the next episode of the podcast. So if you're here at twitch.tv/WrestleRadio Australia, you'll hear it in about 10 minutes. But it was really good to see Delta at the top of the mountain where she should be. Todd?
Look, we've covered the Australian stuff. There was a match that happened over in America. It's TNA now, I guess is what they're called. Will Ospreay and Speedball Mike Bailey. Hell of a match.
Which one's Lachlan?
Who? I'm not talking about it until I've watched it at least one more time.
I haven't watched it yet.
If you're out and you want to watch some more Australian wrestling as well, not that we didn't have enough this weekend, Wrestle Rampage also streamed their show live on YouTube last weekend as well, so you can chase that up. Final Solution, I can't remember what it's called. I don't want to say Final Solution. That sounds.
Yeah, I hope it's not that.
Final Showdown.
Definitely hope it's not that. Are we going back to last week?
That'd be a little bit problematic.
Come along to Deathmatch Down Under. Final Salute. No.
I'm going to go in a slightly different Final Showdown. James Cray official says so. Thanks, James.
It was
thank you. Final Showdown.
Final Showdown.
Oh, part 2 of tonight's going to be fun.
Getting over the fact that I'm currently working with someone who just said something really anti-Semitic by clearly inadvertently. I would like to mention that last night I was pretty shitty about the events of yesterday that we've just spoken about for about 20 minutes. So I threw on the YouTube machine and I looked up Bobby Heenan, and there is a beautiful video with him and Gorilla going back and forth, being very, very silly and popping each other till the cows come home. It runs for about 45 minutes. And by the end, I was laughing so fucking hard. They were just both so good in those roles. And it was lovely to sit and just be able to go back, a couple of decades, 3 decades, 4 decades, whatever it was, and just watch the two of them on prime time, just having a great time.
Can I do a chicken shit and chicken salad in one?
Go for it.
Yeah, go for it.
My chicken shit salad. My chicken shit salad is Jeff stopping me from doing an emergency podcast last night when I was really, really mad about that. It was probably the best thing, but at the time I was like, "You motherfucker! I'm in a right mood right now."
I know it, man. But
he knows because the answers I gave him were 1 and 2 word answers. Yep.
Yes.
Okay. Fine.
And I'll fire off Alex Fireheart's chicken salad that he didn't get to mention last time around. It was nice to see a bunch of local Brisbane wrestlers that Alex mostly hadn't seen live at World Series Wrestling. And it was kind of cool to see PWL get a hype package during the intermission. Some people that he was near popped for it. I know that I sure did. Thank you, Alex. And look, while we're talking about local shows, we'll go into this in more detail on our next episode, which once again, if you're watching at twitch.tv/WrestleRadio Australia, you'll be able to see in mere minutes. But there's a bunch of awesome shows coming down the pipeline. On October 28th, there's PWL Day of Reckoning, which is going to be main evented by Outback Adam defending his PWL Heavyweight Championship against Punch Drunk Istria. On November 11th, we got Renegades of Wrestling Breakthrough. That's going to have Robbie Eagles versus Jarvis, as we mentioned earlier, as well as Ambush versus BDE and Solomon Blackwell versus Lockie Hendricks, with tickets on sale now. November 18th, Wide Bay Hall Brawl is going to be at the Maryborough Town Hall. It's going to have the main event of a triple threat for the Wide Bay Pro Heavyweight Championship between Tim Hayden, Yeet Stevens, and the Business Selects. So if you're in the area, please get along to that one because it's going to be unreal. On December 1st, PWL is going to be doing Bayside Brawl at the Wynnum Fringe. That should be a great show. If you're in Queensland and there are people in your life who are not into wrestling, I suggest that might be an absolute cracker to get them along to. December 10th, MCW Endgame. There's still some tickets left. That's got Brooksy versus Dusky in the Sacrament. So make sure you grab those tickets while they last. On December 16th in Canberra, Slam Wrestling is going to host Rage in the Cage. That one's got Broderick's versus Watts in a steel cage, as well as the Terry Campisi Battle Royale featuring a huge bunch of big-name wrestlers. That's on December 16th at the National Convention Centre in Canberra. And the night before, there's some show called WrestleBrania, which I believe is hosted by some dork named Jeff, who's going to do basically a goofy comedy trivia show all about wrestling the night before.
He's going to open the show with 45 minutes on DMDU and then do the show.
Sure.
December
but it's just me.
Canberra.
It's just me impersonating you from last night. Yep. No. Okay.
I still like the other one too. You messaged me going, did you end up doing that show? No.
No. Yeah.
Thank you.
I could hear how pissed you were.
And November 11th, here at twitch.tv/WrestleRadio Australia, you'll be able to catch an entire 10-hour marathon live stream that's going to celebrate 10 years of Wrestle Radio Australia. We're going to be raising some money to go to some awesome charities like Beyond Blue and Gotcha for Life for mental health here in Australia. Another way you can support those charities.
Rehearsal for that.
Yeah. Got to get that 10-hour script memorized. You can jump onto Redbubble, search for Wrestle Radio Australia, and you'll find our merch with the proceeds going to Beyond Blue and Gotcha for Life. As well as that, just make sure you're following. Hey, twitch.tv/Wrestle Radio Australia. Hit follow if you love what we're doing. Hit subscribe. Also, you can catch us on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Podcast Addict, wherever you get your podcasts. Hit subscribe if you're on Apple Podcasts and can give us a 5-star review and rating. It means a lot. Helps us get into more ears. We're on social media, Instagram and Twitter/X is at Wrestle Radio AU. You can also find us at Wrestle Radio Australia on Facebook. Todd is at Beast Eastman. Jeff is at Jeff_Seti. I am at Lachlan Albert. You can find WrestleBrania stuff at Wrestle_Brania. Woo! We got anything else to talk about before we move on to... Oh, we should record another show about Coliseum, shouldn't we?
Probably Excalibur.
Yeah, I was going to say. Thank you, Man in the Mask.
Well, in that case, on behalf of Todd Eastman and Jeff Seti, I've been Lachlan Albert. Till next time, which is in about 5 minutes. Have a good one.
Bye.
And cut.
Yeah. Okay, guys, we're just going to play a little video so we could probably go tinkle and then come back and do the thing. So it'll be about 5 or so minutes. I've got together a little bit of the highlights and stuff from Fight to Survive. So we can all watch that, or you can all watch that while we go and do our business. And we'll be right back after these messages.
If you want to fight, you can fight again, just not tonight. Okay? December 10, Endgame, you can do it again. Is that okay?
Fine.
Fine. What was that?
Look, this is a sport that I have been doing for 13 years now, and look, I've had experiences all over the world, but look, months ago at High Stakes, Edward Dusk left me with an experience that, you know, I've never had before, and that was laying out there, not being able to move. One of the most scariest moments of my life. Now, man, like, when I'm laying there, all I can hear are people saying, Adam, you're gonna be okay. Everything is just slow motion. And for the first time in my life, pro wrestling wasn't on my mind. You know, like, man, my family, will I be able to walk again? Will I be able to, will I be able to teach my nephew how to kick a footy, you know, like, stuff like that came across my mind. And, you know, when I was laying in that hospital bed, thankfully, feeling came back in my arms and my legs, and I was laying there, and all I could think about then was, I can't have my legacy in this company end like that. Edward Dusk, I don't need no creepy voice. I don't need no dark alley, and I don't need to spiel a bunch of big fancy words. Edward Dusk, all I need for you to do is to look into these eyes right now, because I am dead serious. Within the past year or so, you have definitely raised yourself to the next level. I will give you that. But Dusk, you are still miles away from the level that I am at. Edward Dusk, December 10th, I'm willing to one more time step into your sacrament. You want to be sadistic? You want to be violent? Dusk, December 10th, I have to go back to a version of myself that I really didn't want to have to go back to. I thought to get my spot back here in MCW, I had to be that Brooksy. I had to be the fun Brooksy. But I know that I can't do that. Rocky Minero knows I can't do that. The fans know that I can't do that. Edward Dusk, December 10th, you are going to get a version of Adam Brooks that is so sadistic, so violent, and so loose. Dusk, at Endgame, I end the sacrament once and for all.
Sorry, couldn't help myself. So we're about to kick into the second half of the podcast. Thank you for everyone who is here joining us live, and a special mention to look, the huge amount of chat that has been going on even during the break this time about the turn of Ricky South, his momentum, and the build toward Jess Troy winning the title, which I want to encourage you guys to, and look, Carter coming in with some strong opinions already. Once we get into the PWA stuff, please keep that love coming, because we are going to be more than happy to talk about it. And hey, if you think our podcasts are normally loose, we're about 2 hours in and we're about to start a whole new podcast. This is going to be crooked, baby.
I should add that I've been vaping all night. So, yeah, we're going to have some fun, boys.
Medicated.
Yeah. Oh, it's all it's medicinal.
Let me finish a drink. Are we ready, lads?
Yes.
Yeah. Are we ready, chat? I'll take that as a yes. Hello and welcome to Making Chicken Salad, the Wrestle Radio Australia show where we talk about everything going on around the world of wrestling. I am your host, Lachlan Albert, and I am joined by a man who doesn't own a sword, Todd Eastman. Todd, how you doing, brother?
I'm the example of someone who doesn't own a sword.
Yeah, perfect. And I am joined by, I haven't had enough time to make up a nickname, Jeff Setty. Jeff, how you doing, buddy?
I'm good. I'm really good. How's yourself, Locke? For this
Look,
week?
I'm doing great because we have, within the last 10 minutes, finished recording our podcast about MCW Fight to Survive. So if you're listening to this on the podcast catcher of your choice, I encourage you to come on over to twitch.tv/Wrestle Radio Australia, where you can join us in the chat, like people like Cardo and Keanu have been doing all night, and you would get to hear these episodes back to back, see us going crazy in real time. I strongly encourage it. We are going to talk, and the reason we're splitting this into two podcasts is we've got a huge event to talk about, an event that I was at in person, PWA Coliseum 2023, 2 huge nights of professional wrestling. We got to get stuck into it. So let's open up with night 1, and we'll start by just running through the results of night 1, and then talking about, I guess then we'll run through the results of night 2, and then we'll go in and talk more match by match. So, night 1, in a first-round Coliseum match, Jude the Dude London defeated Emin Osman. Then in another first-round match, Matt Basso defeated Cherry Stevens. Following that, there was a tag team gauntlet match won by the Joker and the Thief. The order of entrance and eliminations went: the Backslide Girls eliminated SMS, then the Joker and the Thief entered to eliminate the Backslide Girls, then MK Plus Ultra, then PPK, then Back Pain. This ending with the Backman Lex turning on Jack Payne and breaking up Back Payne at the end of the match. Following this was another first-round Coliseum matchup with Zack Sabre Jr. defeating Jack J. Bonza to advance, and then Paris De Silva beat Delta to also advance onto the second round of the Coliseum tournament. There was a match for the Soul of PWA Championship, which lasted a total of 14 seconds as the Tuckman defeated Unsocial Jordan, and then the main event of the night, the PWA Heavyweight Championship, was on the line with Ricky South coming in the champion, Jess Troy coming in as the challenger, and we had our first ever female PWA heavyweight champion crowned as Jess Troy finally became the PWA heavyweight champion. Night 2 opened with semifinals for the Coliseum, with Paris De Silva defeating Matt Basso and Zack Sabre Jr. defeating Jude London. Then we had a six-pack challenge sponsored by Wayward Brewing Co., which had Caveman Ugg defeating Ben Braxton, Billy Preston, David Streamer, Jay Sorbet, and Nathan Pigeon. Then a last man standing match special refereed by Jim Bro Jesse, with Backman defeating Jack Payne, Jack Payne leaving his boots in the ring at the conclusion of the match. After this was an 8-man tag match. The first round eliminees of the Coliseum tournament, Cherry Stevens, Delta, Emin Osman, and Jack J. Bonza, managed to defeat the champions of PWA in the form of Jess Troy, the Joker and the Thief, and the Tuckman. After this was an impromptu tag team match after North Shore Wrestling crowned Digby from Big Red Fire Truck to be their Goober of the Year. It became a tag team match. Goober! Digby teamed up with
We're having fun.
We're having fun.
We're having fun.
Digby teamed up with Matt Diamond to unfortunately lose to North Shore Wrestling in the form of Sam Osborne and Will Keatis, followed by the final match of PWA's 2023 Coliseum tournament. Iron Mercy, the sword, the prize on the line, going to Zack Sabre Jr. as he defeated Paris De Silva. Talk about 2 bloody huge nights of wrestling.
I thought you were going to do the results for night 1.
Before we get in.
I thought you were going to do like the results of night 1. We would talk about night 1, then the results of night 2, and then talk about night 2. You fucking
no, but we're on, baby. Let's go.
We don't need to hear you gloat about last week.
Someone says,
Todd.
Yeah,
right. So I thought this was excellent. A little surprised by the result. I think in people that we said could possibly win it, I think we kind of, I mentioned that maybe Zach, in case he's coming back to Australia more often. I didn't actually think it was going to happen. Once it got down to Paris and Zach,
missed the idea of ZSJ winning the tournament on account of you don't have a guy in Japan win your big tournament.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Once it got down to the final, I thought, well, Paris is going to win it. It's great. Good for Paris. But no, it wound up being ZSJ. And I mean, nothing against ZSJ. He's a great wrestler. But yeah, just the booking took me slightly by surprise.
Yeah, Cardo in the chat saying, really? ZSJ was the only option. He couldn't lose. I think what Cardo might be referring to there is, but the fact that Zack Sabre Jr. is part of the New Japan Pro Wrestling roster, perhaps there's a kind of booking condition that he comes out of this looking strong. That's entirely possible.
Yeah, you can still look strong in a loss.
Yeah, and Cardo says count out or DQ maybe. But I think that if you look at the history of Coliseum, it's been a very PWA forward tournament. They use it to crown the best of PWA. Even when they were teaming with MCW, the sword went to, Robbie Eagles, who is a guy who is PWA through and through. And it's been on guys who are the faces of PWA. It went on Mick Moretti, and then it went on Matty Wahlberg, and then it went on Robbie Eagles. So I think it's fair to expect a PWA person to win the sword. I did say after the show, booking-wise, that sword's made now. You can give it to whoever. And look, Jamie Apps immediately behind me with what I'm saying. Zach legitimizes the tournament globally and further strengthens the PWA-NJPW relationship. Absolutely there, Jamie. You give that sword to anyone now, and it's the tournament that Zack Sabre Jr. won, right? There's no way to delegitimize that tournament now, really.
Alex Myhart saying the funniest thing to me about Zach winning is someone at WSW in Brisbane was claiming they had knowledge that PWA couldn't afford to have him there both nights. So someone at PWA tricked whoever that was, or the person was sort of just talking
out their ass.
Yeah. And part of what shocked me about Zach winning was I had assumed that he would lose in the semi-final. And the reason I make that assumption is that you don't necessarily get a big international name, to come and do double duty on your show and work one of the opening matches and also the main event. That's a lot of work to put on Zack Sabre Jr., especially when during that early match on night 2, where he beat Jude London, that was not a light match. That was 15 minutes that went hard. And then he won. And I went, oh my God, he's going to wrestle again at PWA? It's not like it's, Wrestle Kingdom that he's working two matches in a night. This is a PWA show where he just put on a ripper and he's about to do the main event as well. I was really shocked by that. I assumed that he would win night 1 because he's an international and you want him to win, and then lose early in night 2 so he can go home.
I will say I loved how strong they made Matt. They made Matt Basso surprisingly strong against Cherry. I was really, really shocked at how strong they made him in that match.
This was a great tournament because everybody looked strong. There's no one in that tournament who you can say looked weak. Possibly, I don't agree necessarily with the Delta decision, but that's it. And that's a small thing.
Yeah, but also Delta lost to someone who almost beat ZSJ in the final. Right? Like, I understand what you're saying, but if Delta's going to lose to an Aussie person, it might as well be someone who almost wins the whole thing.
Yeah.
And,
See, if I was to do that tournament, I probably would have put maybe 2 PWA guys up against each other in the first round, just because you're guaranteed someone who outside of PWA was going through to the next round. Do you know what I mean? Like, they had, because off the top of my head, I think it was all PWA against like interstaters.
Correct. There were 4 PWA representatives in the tournament, and 1 was in each of the the quarterfinals.
Yeah. So if I was to throw a spanner in the works, that was possibly the only sort of spanner I would have thrown, because then you sort of guaranteed that it's going to be somebody from like outside of PWA has a good chance of getting through to semis, finals. I really, really enjoyed Zack Sabre and Bonza in that first night, because it was that ground grappling. I love that style. I love that style of match. It's really, really good. It was like, I think I described it as like, it was like a tank versus a boa constrictor watching those, like a technical tank against a boa constrictor. That's what it was like watching those two work each other. And they worked really, really well. The biggest problem I had with night one was the tag team gauntlet match.
Yeah.
Aside from that, the rest of night one, even the title match, which we'll get to, I'm sure we're going to get to in depth as we hit it. The tag team gauntlet match to me really showed me how thin the tag team division is in PWA when you look from a pure skill outpoint. And the fact that I know that Jack Payne obviously wanted to retire or was planning on retiring. I'm just going to say right now that PWA fumbled the bag on Back Payne. They had such a good chance for making such a big, strong Road Warrior type team out of those two, and they sort of ummed and ahed and didn't pull the trigger, and now this is where we are with it, unfortunately. And that's what I'll say about it. Like, Joker and a Thief are a great team, and we talked earlier about Moretti, with the dynamic of Moretti with the
last
two
episode
in MCW. Yes, and I will say it feels different here because it feels like Jimmy and Mick are very much on the same page, very much on the same sort of level now. When it comes to, like, I didn't see anywhere.
Sure, but we're at the conclusion of that storyline, right?
Yeah, it happened very quickly though. That conclusion, it happened over 2 shows.
Sure, but it happened over like 6 months.
Equal. He was Mick's equal, not Mick's student. Do you know what I mean?
I think he still shows up as Mick's student in these tag matches, right? Like, he does a little bit of the trickery, but really what goes on in these matches, and you could see it very much in this gauntlet, was that Mick does something which allows him to capitalize. And that was the way that they took out every team, was Mick did something which allowed Jimmy to capitalize.
No, they both did something. That's why I said they very much both seemed on the level. And like, if anything, it did, I will say, it established like those two as the predominant tag team in PWA. I actually really like the idea of Tommy D joining MK Plus Ultra. I think that's a nice little addition because he's things out injured. I think he fit in quite well. I'm interested to see those two in an actual proper tag match where we can see a fully formed match out of them. I'm interested to see how Tommy D goes in that sort of a situation. Being around Michael Spencer and Kai is only going to help him immensely anyway. But yeah, that's what I'll say. That was really, like, leading up to the main event. My only problem with that night one was that tag gauntlet because it seemed very thin on the ground.
I would agree. It just before the show we were talking about the tag gauntlet a little bit, and I said it seemed like the crowd just lost investment with it quite quickly. And maybe that's because it wasn't a tournament match, and maybe it's because, as Todd said, it was a bit of a foregone conclusion.
As someone who was there, I feel like the gauntlet, people were so hyped for the tournament stuff that was coming. And I don't think that the crowd was quiet for this match, but I see Cardo says it was boring live. I don't necessarily agree that it was boring, but I think that there was much more exciting stuff immediately on the horizon, right? If you look at the rest of this card, we were 2 Coliseum matches in. We had 2 Coliseum matches to go, including the one with ZSJ in it. And we had the Soul of PWA match coming. And we had the main event coming with the potential for Jess Troy to become heavyweight champion. Mm-hmm. We didn't need the gauntlet on this night, I think. It is a bit of a tradition for Coliseum. They do these tag team gauntlets and they traditionally have a team sweep through a lot of it. So last time when it was in Melbourne, it was the Pareja sweeping through a lot of the tournament. And then the time before it was the Prefects. And that set up for the match against Massive Q with James Adultman, right? So this is a way that, because this is the quote-unquote WrestleMania of PWA, they want to get a lot of people on the card. They want to show off a lot of the talent for people like me, or not necessarily like me, but the people who show up for PWA, not every show of the year, but they'll come for Coliseum or they'll watch Coliseum online. And having those teams come out is important.
Here's my question to you, though, right? Out of this match now, who is the logical challenger for that tag title?
No one.
No, because they went through everybody.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
If they'd have gotten a shock loss, say against MK plus Ultra, or even back pain, even though they knew what was happening the next night, so that wasn't going to happen. But let's say that Jack was not going to retire. If you'd have had them beat them and led to a title match the next night, and that's when thing turns on him, then you've made a mini story out of the night, as well as you've got your tournament. You've got something else for people to look forward to, as well as the tournament final on the next night. T-Bone's already said they wiped out the entire tag division in one night. He's not wrong. Because basically, aside from the velocities, they went through everybody else.
Yep. And on top of that, they showcase that the velocities are great singles wrestlers, not just tag team wrestlers. Right? So you almost also took the velocities out of the tag division by having them showcase how good they are as singles wrestlers. You know, both of them only losing to ZSJ in the Coliseum. Like, that's huge. And they both had great matches. So, which sucks because traditionally the tag division has been really exciting in PWA. They've had really good stuff going on. And if you think about, you know, it's a company that was almost built on the nations being an ongoing thing. It is really disappointing to see that be the way it looks now.
Yeah. And like, I'll say that I thought Jude and Emin was probably the perfect opening match for a show you could have. I watched that match, and like after that match, I was like, wow, this is going to be a good fucking night. That match was, I think I even tweeted it out, that if that match wasn't like the follow this match, like they would have walked to the back and went, good luck with that one, boys. Have a good night.
Yeah.
Because that was the perfect set. And like to contrast that with Grim and Cherry, where Grim just fucking destroyed her, like came out and really, for people at PWA who really wouldn't have seen a lot of Matt coming forward, to see this dude walk out the way he did, the way they presented him with Cherry, who, let's face it, Cherry's done a lot of really good things. She was the solo PWA champ, and have Matt sort of just walk through her, which is basically what he did. Like, she put up a little bit of offense, but that was 7 minutes, and I think 5 of them was Matt. That was the contrast in matches, I think, was really good. The tag team gauntlet slowed the night up.
Yep.
But then we moved into a different type of match with a grappling match with Zach and Bonza, which I fucking loved. It was one of my favorite matches.
It was bloody brilliant
from that night.
It was great.
So I'll talk quickly. Jude and Emin, when they came out, my partner Mickey turned to me and she said, well, we've got a problem. First match is going to be my match of the night. And it was true. Like, that match was very hard for anyone to top.
She seems very judgy. I'm joking.
You're just hearing the comments that are worth the podcast, right? But I said to her coming into it, I'm like, these are guys that you will love. Jude, you'll love Emin. Like, they were at the top. Them and Paris were at the top of my list of, you're going to love these people in Coliseum. So for that to be the opener was huge. I thought that Grim, they did an awesome job of making Grim look huge, so that when eventually they had, you know, him lose in the semi-final to Paris, it seemed really important for Paris to be able to do that, right? That's massive. We've spoken about the gauntlet, and as much as I didn't love the gauntlet, everything the Joker and the Thief did was fun. And I wish that I was able to enjoy the Backslide girls more, because I like both of those girls. I like the gimmick. I think the entrance was not great, and I think that they didn't look awesome winning with the Backslide, even though that's like the gimmick. It's nobody kicks out of the schoolboy. I'll say that.
And I'm still about the heel manager with the babyface team.
Streamer does not need to be there.
Carlos just said that there are too many comedy people in PWA. I don't agree. PWA is still traditionally based very much on Chikara, and Chikara is chock full of comedy characters. So I completely disagree with you there, Cardo. Sorry, mate.
And I think that from a wrestling perspective, it's easy to say, oh, well, I want to see more people more matches like Jess Troy and Ricky South. And that's fine, but that's not necessarily the company. The company has those people to be a highlight.
Yeah, but you also need those different flavors on a show.
Oh, absolutely. And I think that the reason something like FanFest works to the extent that it does, and we'll talk more about FanFest later, is because so much of the show is about characters and not about wrestlers, right? It's very much, it's almost WWE, right? You don't have a lot of people coming out in black trunks to wrestle. You have a lot of characters coming out who are wrestlers. And I think that works. I know it works for me, right? You were just talking, Todd, about Zack Sabre Jr. versus Jack Bonza. I think Bonza is always a good hand. He's always good in a match. But when you put him against someone like ZSJ, you see just how good he actually is at every part of what they do in the ring. And the crowd response to Bonza, and we'll talk about it on night 2 as well in the 8-person match. The crowd fucking hates Bonza. He is so in the heat that everyone just wants to boo him the entire time. And so you put him up against ZSJ and the crowd eats it up. Yeah, I really enjoyed that. And then Paris de Silva and Delta. This is one where it was tricky, right? Because again, Paris went on to be the finalist, but I would have loved to have seen more from Delta. I don't necessarily think this match showcased Delta the amount that I would have liked to have seen. And I don't necessarily think she was showcased as much as she could have been on the second night either. So that was my biggest disappointment for the show, was kind of how little Delta we got. And then let's talk about the Tuckman becoming the new Soul of PWA champion in a 14-second match where Unsocial Jordan tries to go for a disqualification loss with a tripod shot. Tuckman lands a pounce, gets the pin, and is in shock as he becomes the new Soul of PWA champion. I think the Tuckman is perfect for this title.
Yeah, I also heard I've heard rumors that Unsocial Jordan is actually injured and needs to get an operation. That's why they've done it the way they did it. I think they made there you go. Jordan has an ACL issue also. So, like, I think they did it in the perfect way to do it. They didn't just go, look, what can you do? Sweet, we can work around this. Let's make it at least a little bit entertaining. Because no one was expecting that. Everyone was expecting a fairly decent match. And then, obviously, well, not even obviously, because I really wasn't expecting Tuckman to win it, only because he's so new.
And on top of that, Andy PW said he hasn't worked a match since he won the title, sadly. And yeah, like that's unfortunate. But you add in this idea of Jessica Troy winning over Ricky South was going to be the big emotional highlight of the show. So you could have Tuckman lose and that would be fine. Nobody's going home sad because the Tuckman didn't win, because it was followed by Jess Troy winning. So for me, it was kind of a foregone conclusion that Unsocial Jordan was going to retain. Keanu in the chat saying, why Tuckman though? I really like Tuckman as, I think, probably a short-term Soul of PWA champion. Yeah. He has got the crowd really behind him because of the gimmick.
He's very over. So when he loses to a heel, say Will Ketis, that's heat.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. Look, Keanu saying Ben Braxton is there. I don't think Braxton's got enough of the character yet to be able to hold that.
I think Ben Braxton is already above the Soul of PWA level.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
that match massively disagree with that.
That match he had with Ricky South says to me he is not a Intercontinental champion. He's a world champion. If to put it in those terms.
Sure. The PWA title is it changes hands so infrequently there's no way I can see Braxton in that PWA heavyweight picture as really having the potential to take the title. If I'm being honest, he is over with the crowd. Andy's absolutely right. The crowd love Ben, and I never got that sense without being in the building. I never got just how over Ben Braxton is, but you get in the room and people love him.
I think Tuckman's a good choice for this role. As you've both said, it won't be a long term. He won't be a long-term champ, but it's a nice way to put the foot in the pool and see exactly how the crowd runs at him as a champion, and not risking the heavyweight on him. I think if he improves a bit in ring, he'll be great. He'll be a huge asset for that company.
And I will say, as someone just looking somewhat on the inside, somewhat on the outside, I know as a rookie, he has done some of the hardest yards that people don't see. That the PWA tour last year that we were lucky to work on up in Queensland, he just came up to help with ring crew.
Yeah.
He came up, like, he does those little 1%ers to be a part of for someone that does that is willing to learn, is willing to be a sponge, PWA are going to get behind, because that's the type of person that they want in those positions.
And I'll jump in on that as well. If on Twitter, I saw a comment from one of the people behind the scenes in PWA mentioning that last time Coliseum was in Sydney in 2019, Ricky South single-handedly took down the ring and put it on the truck to get it to the show, and then lost his first round Coliseum match, and then Matt Wahlberg got signed that night. So, like, that was Ricky South putting in those yards. And I think those are the yards that Tuckman and Jamie Apps just said exactly the same in the chat. Tuck followed in the footsteps of Ricky in that sense. Exactly. If he's going to be behind the scenes, putting in the legwork and doing those things, it's going to result in the people behind the scenes at PWA putting their faith in him. And also, all of the people who really know what they're talking about in wrestling are going to be watching him to give him those little tips, because they know how hard he is working.
And honestly, Ricky doesn't call himself Ricky. Like, the example isn't just a gimmick name for Ricky. Behind the scenes, he is the example of what you want in a professional wrestler.
And here's the other thing about Ricky. Ricky loves wrestling. Ricky, I can tell you this for a simple fact. Ricky absolutely loves wrestling. And he's an outstanding human being. Like I know a lot of people that boo Ricky. You know, Beck is one of them. Little Beck, I hate Ricky. And I keep going.
Beck got a photo with Ricky on Sunday. It was very hard for her, but as she said, we're healing.
Yeah, but and she's lovely. I think the world of Beck. But Ricky has gone above and beyond what any person should do in the name of wrestling. He's just great. I've got so much respect.
And he would have done that. He would have been like, he would have just got to the building early, saw no one was there, went, fuck it, I'll do it myself.
Yep.
Yeah.
So by the time people rookies rocked up to help pull down the ring and load it, he just done it himself. He's like, I was here early, I'll just do it.
Yeah.
And he just said, and Ricky is the nicest guy in the world. He'd be so successful if he landed somewhere overseas, because he's someone that people would really want to work with. That's so true, Andy. That is so true. He's just a gent. He's an absolute gent.
Speaking of Ricky South, he lost his main event on night one, with Jessica Troy becoming the new PWA heavyweight champion. Todd, was this the right moment?
I told you last week that it was this moment, or they were going to completely overcook her. And they did. They pulled the trigger. That is what it was. The moment they wanted. They wanted that moment of Madison Eagles in the ring with Jess, celebrating with her. They got their moment. They got their WrestleMania moment. Then, like, they couldn't have done it on night two. Like, looking back, I would have liked to have been night two, like at an overall thing. But you can't do that when you're crowning the winner of Coliseum. Do you know what I mean? You just can't. You can't do that. But yeah, it was the right time. It was the right time. The way they got there, a little bit hinky, but they had to stretch it out, I guess, till Coliseum. But it was the right time.
The crowd response in the room was huge. The crowd were so ready for Jess to win. Look, Andy PWDU in the chat said, I loved this match. The entrances, the hot crowd, the fudge return, the celebrations at the end. This was a great coronation. I think that the end of this match could have been shaved just a little. I think that the heat was absolutely there and people were just ready for it. And especially once Fudge came back, it did seem like a bit of a foregone conclusion that Jess was winning it. But it just took that little bit long for her to finally sink in that 3 count. I think that I would have liked Fudge to have been pushed closer to the end of the match, and I also would have liked him to have less impact. I didn't like that he landed a move onto a chair, because if I'm being really critical, Jess didn't do this herself. She had the help of Fudge to take down South, whereas South didn't have the help of anyone else, right? So I would have loved it if, for example, South had been about to hit Jess with the chair because Ref Hannah was on the floor. Lights went out, lights came up. Fudge took the chair out of South's hand, distracted him for just long enough to have turned into a big move from Jess, and then have Fudge throw Ref Hannah back in the ring. So that way it's all Jess except for Fudge stopping Ricky from cheating. That's, I think, really good. Jamie Apps mentioned the match was filled with tributes to PWA's women of the past, which was great, which I absolutely agree with. I will say that I actually messaged the boys on the podcast after the Tuckman won the Soul of PWA title, and I messaged them and said, wow, guess Jess isn't winning tonight. And then the pre-match promo started with all of the women who've been in PWA. And then I replied, okay, never mind. Yeah, like once they were doing that promo, and once, you know, we were seeing the moments of Madison Eagles and all of that stuff.
Sorry, can I just, I'm just, because I've been seeing this in the chat frame. Look, Cardo, obviously you got a hard on for not liking it. You're a girl, you can't, because you just wrote you're a girl, or she, or whoever it is. I'm not sure, because there's no, it's anonymous person. You're a girl, you can't diss yourself yet have a low card male. But anyone who thinks that Fudge, after the way they did that angle with him, was a low card guy, you're just looking for reasons to be a dick.
And also, and importantly, the story between Ricky and Fudge,
if you heard,
absolutely fantastic. And
he said, you're in the building, you heard the pop when that fucking lights went on.
Yeah.
If that was a low card guy and the lights went on, you wouldn't have heard the pop. The attendance were,
if Fudge, the story between Ricky and Fudge has been incredible. If Jess was going to win, you knew that Fudge would have to have a hand in it. And boy, howdy, it paid off. It paid off.
I do want to just address what Cardo's saying with the attendance, because that has been for him like clearly a very big point. I think that when you have your Sunday show start early and your Saturday show is happening at the same time as literally 15 meters across the street, the Amity Affliction are playing, I think that's going to hurt attendance.
I also think that the fact and people can
go... Sorry, I'll just jump on that again. Sorry, Amity were playing 15 meters across the street, and in the same entertainment precinct was an A-League game. Right? You can only cram so many people into a venue.
Yeah. There's also possible licensing restrictions. There's also possible ticket limits that are imposed by the venue and have nothing to do with PWA.
They also, like Keanu says, they also could have maybe priced themselves out of the market.
Yeah.
Like,
also, and importantly, it's on live on Fight Plus, so people can go, do I want to sit in the comfort of my own home, or do I want to go in and watch it? And some will choose to sit in the comfort of their own home.
Yeah, that's the thing about going on Fight Live, right? Is you can just watch it. It's really easy. The conversation about potentially Madison Eagles coming back is something I would bloody love to see. I know that I got a photo with ZSJ on the fan fest and afterwards asked if I could also get a photo with Madison because she was taking the photos of people with ZSJ. And Zack Sabre Jr. went, that's a guy who actually knows what real wrestling is. If this was the right way around, I would have been taking photos of you all night. Like, Madison is one of the absolute greats. If this leads to a Jess Troy Madison Eagles match, they can have all of my money.
As Jamie said, though, fight has definitely been a double-edged sword for PWA. Absolutely, Jamie. Absolutely. But it's great. Like, if you're out of state, it's great to have on there and to be able to watch it live.
Yeah. And Alex Fireheart's right on. Been said before a million times, but wrestling shows aren't just competing with each other. They're competing with every other event that week in whatever city they're in. And I actually
as a point of thing for that, for us locally, up at Wide Bay, the last show we had happened to land on the same night of two semifinals in the ARL and the NRL, and both Brisbane teams were in them. It's something that's out of our hands when we set dates a year in advance. It just happens sometimes. Like, unfortunately, we don't coordinate dates with the NRL, the ARL, the A-League, Amity Affliction, bloody Pearl Jam.
I talked to someone in Sydney who literally said, I'm so glad the Tuck Man won. I used to be like roommates with him in uni. I couldn't be there though because I was at Amity.
Yeah. Look, there was
sort of like, correct me if I'm wrong, that'd probably be a good crossover of their demographic, wouldn't it?
Massive.
There was an MCW show in February, and Rowan hit me up and said, "Hey, do you want tickets, mate?" And I said, "I can't. I'm going to Me First and the Gimme Gimmies." It's literally everything. It's literally if everything from a Wiggles concert to opera can affect the attendance levels at a wrestling show, and you're never going to know what it is.
Andy PWDU also says, I don't know where PWA is supposed to be fitting all these extra people. I don't know how many upstairs holds, but Saturday was pretty bloody full. Yeah, we actually struggled to leave the venue afterwards because the merch tables were near the exit and there were so many people there. Like, that's one of the things.
The mezzanine level was closed down?
Yeah, the mez wasn't in use. I believe there were some cameras up there and stuff, so that may have been to do with the use of Fight. Yeah, Keanu saying just they don't use the upstairs anymore. So I don't know if there's other factors going on with the mez or...
Yeah, I'd like to know what the capacity is then for that building. That'd be an interesting question.
Yeah, Keanu's saying they use the upstairs for cameras now. I know that... in fairness, I did see Jessica Troy and Delta up there to watch the Zack Sabre Jr. match, but because wouldn't you? But I can't. And look, Cardo's coming in saying 1,200 standing and with stage and upstairs. That's not true when you have a ring. When you have a ring in the middle of the thing, plus a ringside area for them to fly out to, like they constantly do. There's no way.
And the stage entrance space and. There's so many variables. You can't just go, oh, the attendance is shit, because this is a different thing.
That was packed. Was that 420 with the mez upstairs as well?
Or was the Rumble at Liberty Hall?
I didn't realize.
Oh yeah, it was at Liberty Hall, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but anyway, that there's stories about. I can say that it was fairly full downstairs. Let's talk about night 2 a little bit quicker.
Can I just say one more thing about the title match, please?
Yes.
The fact that even when the two of them came out, there was no clue as to who was going to win is a credit to both. Jess's outfit was fantastic and called on several of the things that Ricky had called out, as picked up by the commentators who did a fantastic job. And Ricky was great in defeat. If you saw what he did, he was aghast. He was shocked. It was great character work from Ricky. And I do hope he comes back a little more manic and a little more crazy. He's got to go away for a few months, as is PWA's way. But I think he'll come back midway through next year a bit more mental.
But that's also what I pitched to you last week, wasn't it, Jeff?
Yes, and I didn't agree with it.
No. But I'm not at all. I'm not at all like rubbing this in. What I'm saying is, like, he loses now. He comes back more angry.
Yeah.
And if you've got like an angry Ricky South coming after a babyface underdog like Jess Troy, that's some really good stories you can tell from that. Some really good stuff you can tell.
The other thing I want to just go back to attendance is that some places still have COVID requirements on them. So, yes, I know that for a fact. I know that for an absolute fact. Some venues still have, you can have this, but you can't have that.
Jeff, as someone who runs shows, may have that info.
Yeah. There are some venues, particularly if other things are on. So,
Yeah,
anyway,
absolutely.
Let's keep going.
Talking about night 2, and night 2 definitely felt, night 1 was absolutely packed. You could feel that starting 2 hours earlier on a Sunday, after everyone had just lost their minds for Jess Troy winning, everyone was a little bit spent, but really excited. So the opener had Paris De Silva and Matt Basso. Obviously, when you do the 2-night tournament, when you've got semis on night 2, they've got to be first up because those guys have got to have some rest for that main event. And Paris and Matt Basso here really went for it. I think having Basso take down Cherry so convincingly on night 1 really made him feel super dangerous here. And seeing Paris overcome that was awesome. And then ZSJ beating Jude London in a bit of a shock, especially after, and this is what I was saying, when the longer the match went on, the more I was certain Sable was losing. Because especially after Paris had won and we had the potential for a Velocities final, when you have a match go for 11 minutes, you're like, okay, ZSJ is not pulling double duty after 11 minutes. And then you're 13 minutes in and you're like, okay, well, he's definitely not pulling double duty after 13. And they just kept going and going and building it and building it. And then ZSJ won. I thought it was absolutely unreal. And yeah, both of the ZSJ versus Velocity matches were off the hook. They were really like speedy and technical and hard hitting. Jamie Apps saying here, ZSJ versus Jude was his match of the weekend. Hard to argue. That was a killer match. After this was the 6-pack challenge. This was, and I know we talked about the tag team gauntlet night 1. The 6-pack was the match where I felt the most crowd loss from the whole of these 2 nights. Because like I was just saying, you're coming down after a ZSJ and Jude London, which is, Jamie's match of the weekend. Andy PW saying that Sunday ZSJ and London was so good, so hot, and it was such an emotional release from the crowd when it finished. It might be my Australian match of the year, but I was exhausted afterwards, ready to leave after just that match, right? So you've got that, and then it's like, okay, here's a 6-pack challenge. And it's got David Streamer and Jay Sorbet and Nathan Pigeon. And this is not against those guys, but they're not Zack Sabre Jr. versus Jude London.
Yeah,
right.
But they were say a sorbet for the rest of the tournament.
Ooh,
see what I did there?
Ooh, how lovely there, Todd.
2 hours 40,
for my
still
job.
killing it.
My goodness. Look, the match was good, and the story of the match was it's Ugg versus Braxton, and 4 other people are also there. Right? Is like that's what this was. It was designed to show off, and Ben Braxton and Caveman Ugg have been going at it in multi-man matches for a little while now. It was also really a good showing of just how damn good Billy Preston is, because as far as I'm concerned, Streamer, Sorbet, Pigeon, they were good, right? And they did their job well in this match. Billy Preston did exactly the same role that Streamer and Sorbet and Pigeon did. But every time something happened to him, he made the funniest noise in human history. I don't know what it is, but it nailed it for me. I absolutely loved it. So I think
I will say I did hear that Nathan Pigeon broke his ankle in this match as well. So, like, best of luck to him on his recovery. So I hope it's not too bad a break and he can come back fairly soon. I probably would have had Ben Braxton go over for this, only because, like, Caveman Ugg's done it all in PWA. He doesn't need to be and he didn't have to take the pin. They could have easily put David Streamer, have David Streamer eat the pin because let's face it, everyone wants to see him get his ass kicked anyway. But yeah, just something to give Braxton a little nudge. Let's say.
Yeah, and like Keanu says, we need a Ugg versus Braxton singles feud now. That's absolutely what this is building to. They've been having those two see each other in multi-mans for a while now. The end state for this is Ugg and Braxton are going one-on-one. That's what this match was for, as well as, bringing the crowd back down after a really hot first round Coliseum. After this, we had the last man standing match with Backman beating Jack Payne, special guest referee Jim Bro Jesse, and they really went all out on this one with huge table spots and ridiculous stuff. Backman and Jack Payne are both so physically strong that when you see them do the stupid hardcore stuff, it's hard. And in that building, everything looks disgusting when you are that close to them running full bore and just crashing into each other. I think that, again, it definitely suffered being on night 2 and everyone going, oh my God, it's ZSJ versus Paris in the final. And we'd just come down on that 6-pack challenge. But
they also set this up on socials through the FanFest as well.
Yeah, and if you were at FanFest, there was a conflict between the two of them. But I wasn't on, because basically I was at FanFest and then I went back into the city to eat and then I came back for the show. So I wasn't looking at social media to see, what had happened in the meantime. I just saw them clashing at FanFest and then this was the match, right? I hate last man standing matches. I fucking hate them. I really do. I think they're shit. I think you can just have a hardcore match and it works better because the result is you end up counting to 8 a lot.
Yeah. Or 9 a lot.
Or 9.
It's almost like the hide and seek. 9 3/4.
Yeah.
It looked, the talent was there and the match itself wasn't bad, but I agree with you completely, Lachlan. Jamie's poor merch table in the match. Sorry to hear that, brother. Look, yeah, this one was a little bit of a struggle to watch at home.
In saying that, as far as just in-ring match quality, having Jack Payne go out on his back in a really brutal match, it's hard to think of a better send-off for someone. He really showed what he had brought in this match, and Andy's absolutely right. What was with the finish of this match? So it was like an 8 count and then Backman did a coast to coast into Jack Payne and then Jesse counted the last 2. It didn't really work. Andy saying that he thought this was the worst thing on the weekend. Poorly set up, poor match, no heat. I don't think it was a poor match. I genuinely think if this had been a no DQ rather than a last man standing, exactly the same match, people would have liked it a lot more.
Keanu, Keanu says should have waited till December. We don't know what the circumstances of Jack retiring is. Maybe he's had a job where he's FIFO. Maybe you've got a job where he has to move away. So he wasn't going to be available for December. So it was like a quick look, we're going to wrap this up. You don't know. There might be extenuating circumstances to this. I didn't like this match for the mere fact, I liked the match. I didn't like the match for the mere fact that it was them breaking up. And I was still dirty. I was still dirty on the fact that it was such a good tag team that had so much potential and they never got to see that. That for me is going to be if somebody asked me a question in 5 years about a tag team that never really got the push that they could have, I'm probably going to say Back Pain. because I don't know how long, even before Jimbo Jesse joined him, I was like, I want to manage this team. I can see so much potential out of these guys. I'd love to work with them.
It feels like money left on the table.
Shame. It's so much money left on the table. But best of luck to Jack. If whatever he's doing in his life, maybe he wants to come back in a couple of years. Who knows? Who knows what the real story is about the retirement? Maybe I'll message him and find out. I don't know. But like, thank you for all you've done. You and Backman, great tag team, really, and one of those ones that excellent. I will say they're a missed opportunity because they really were.
I think this match showed that as well, just how physical they could be.
Yeah, but I'm looking forward to see what Backman does going forward too, because he's got so much potential as well.
And it'll be interesting to see where Jimbo Jesse goes from here, because she's obviously still face. Backman's now a heel. I will say Backman was absolutely eating up playing a heel. He seemed to be really loving it, doing things like at the Fan Fest. There was Billy Preston was hosting art lessons and portrait drawing. And he drew someone in the banana costume, just drew a big yellow penis and then wrote $1,000 on it as the price tag and stuck it up on the wall. And then was yelling at everyone for not buying it. Like, just absolutely getting into, I get to be something annoying now, and just going straight into it with both feet. So you can see, like, Backman, obviously, I think has a massive future ahead of him if he can come out of this with the kind of singles respect that he deserved with Jack Payne as a tag team. But hopefully this one comes to something where I think, unfortunately, Back Payne really didn't. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see how Jimbo Jesse goes, because that really was the gimmick. She was part of this gym team. And now she's not, but she's presumably still got the same gimmick. She'll just be a women's wrestler now. So it'll be interesting.
Like, she can still, like, she competes in strongman contests as well. So
yeah, and she's a beast. Like, she can go.
They can easily do that for her as a gimmick. I can't see that's really any impediment to her at all.
Yeah,
I think this might actually help her, like, branch out.
I think what would be fun is if you put the backslide girls with her and they try and feminine her up. And it just doesn't work. You can have some really nice comedy there. Yeah, you're both smiling, so you can both see the kind of thing I'm getting at. It could just be such great comedy, because the backslide team is pretty much a comedy team.
Yeah.
So, having some fun with Jimbo Jesse and then Jimbo just goes nuts at them would be.
My concern is that these two are still as great as they were in Back Pain, and if they didn't do anything with Back Pain, I hope they do something with them, because they've had years to do something with them and haven't.
Yeah.
Yep. And Alex Flyhart's got a great pick there. Maybe she'll do something with Mikey Broderick when he goes there for a PWA show.
Good idea. Good call, Alex. And I mean, I don't think they can't. Jimbo Jesse is a no. You can't mess with her. She's just whatever she does.
Couldn't mess with Back Pain, and they did.
Yeah, that's true. Whatever she does, though, the crowd are going to just eat up.
Absolutely. Look, then we went to an 8-man tag match. It was the eliminated players from the first round of the Coliseum tournament versus the champions of PWA. So Cherry Stevens, Delta, Emin Osman, and Jack J. Bonza up against Jess Troy, the Joker and the Thief, and the Tuck Man. And this one was punctuated with a whole lot of anyone but Bonza chants as a 8-man tag match with one heel in it. Bonza copped a lot. And I thought the match was really well put together to showcase everyone in there being a great wrestler. But
we also found out that... So does that mean that Tuckman is Kingsley's brother?
What?
No. Because, Bonza's his dad.
Yeah, maybe.
Uncle.
Maybe. Well, they could be cousins at least.
There you go, cousins. That's what I was thinking. Because it's obvious that Tuckman's Bonza's son, apparently.
Yeah. Pretty clearly. It makes a lot of sense, doesn't it? So, yeah, I think this match was really fun and a great way to get people back into after the intermission, knowing that the main event was going to be huge, you needed something fun here, and it gave the people who didn't get to shine as much in the first round of the Coliseum another chance to shine. And I think that, like, especially Emin, who had such a great showing on night one, got to show, hey, I really can go. It wasn't a fluke because I was against one of the velocities. You know what I mean? But yeah, the match was an absolute delight. Everyone in it is a really high quality worker. When the worst worker you've got in a match is the Tuckman, that's a high bar. And it was a great opportunity for a lot of these people to show off exactly why they're in the spots they're in, getting in the Coliseum tournament and earning those titles. And I think that having Bonza pick up the win for that team was a really interesting choice, because it let everyone boo Bonza but still cheer everyone else, almost as if he was the other side of the team. But we got to see like Jess Troy and Delta go back to the awesome feud that they were having. The Joker and the Thief played so well with people like Cherry and Emin. I actually loved this match. I thought it was really, really great.
It was fun. It was just a lot of fun and perfect to get people back in the room after the break.
Yeah.
Really good.
Yeah. After that, anything else, Todd?
No, you're fine. It was for me, it was just like, it was an inoffensive match. I wasn't mad at it, but then I was like, okay, that happened. I don't know so much about, like, I don't know if they're going to, like, I think someone in the chat said before, maybe Bonza and Farley challenging for the tag titles or something like that, and that's why the tag champion got pinned. Aside from that, I don't know that I would have at least had the champions win. Because you had Jess Troy go over in a big match the night before, and the next night she's losing in a nothing 8-man.
Yeah.
I don't know.
But
that's me being nitpicky.
But also it's a nothing 8-man, so does it really matter, right? And the crowd were really into it, which, I mean...
it's a nothing 8-man, but it's a nothing 8-man with a team of champions.
Yeah. And having the team of champions lose is interesting if you don't pay it off in some way.
Yeah. Like, if you're going to do it, then you would do it, like, say, for say Tuckman gets pinned by Bonza.
Yep.
And so then it's Bonza and Tuckman, because that's a story like uber serious Tuckman, uber serious Bonza, like comedy-ish Tuckman going forward. Because if Jordan's out for a while, he's not coming back for that title, is he?
Yeah, that's true.
So I don't know. That's just me throwing shit against the wall.
Yeah, and then after this, we had the Goober of the Year awards, with Sam Osborne and Will Keatis presenting that award to Digby from Big Red Fire Truck, who eventually got help from Matt Diamond, turning this into a tag team match. North Shore Wrestling won, but got their comeuppance when the lead singer of Red Hook managed to hit a pretty impressive Poison Rana on Sam Osborne. This was fun. We're having fun. I think that Sam Osborne and Will Keatis are fantastic. They get their role exactly. I think this could have been a little shorter, but I think every second of rest that ZSJ and Paris De Silva could get was needed. So I understand why this is going the time it did. I have to come in here and say, I don't have a clue who Digby is. I know that he's appeared in PWA like previously to wrestle, and he was part of the Monstars of PWA performing on night one. Andy PW saying this was horrendous. It went forever, and the payoff of some Rangamuso that no one cared about was rubbish. I think, again, this is a situation where when night one is playing against the Amity Affliction, all of the people who love heavy music and would go both nights maybe don't go to the Sunday show, especially the day after they've just beaten themselves up in the Amity pit. And I think that if you just had those fans there, it would have been a different feeling. But the people who were there were like the people who showed up because they know wrestling and they know how huge Coliseum is and they want to see ZSJ and Delta. They're not the people who are going to pop for Digby, I think.
Like, if you were really going to do it, you would have thought, and maybe he didn't want to train or didn't want to do it, that you would have put like the other big fudge in the match.
Yeah. Yeah, very possible. Jamie App saying that North Shore could go on to the tag titles because they did win this match. They're the other tag team who had a big win this show. So,
but is that 2 heel teams? Are Mick and Thing heels?
No, they're faces.
They are?
They're slimy faces, but they're faces.
Okay. I'm not going to argue. Okay.
Well, if you look at, I mean, by the fan response, they're faces. For sure. If you look at the fact that people are cheering everyone but Bonza when they were on the champion team. And I mean, that doesn't say much, but people are also cheering them the entirety of the tag team gauntlet.
Yeah.
Like the whole thing.
Wow. Yeah.
I just want to say...
Do you know what?
I just want to say it's really good to see Sam back. Like, he's back and he's clearly having fun.
Yeah, he's having fun.
The whole thing with Will Ketis is a great comedy heel. He really is. And having Sam back in it as his offsider is really, really great. So good to see you back, Sammy.
Yeah, I'm really glad he's back. I kind of wish he never took the break. That's totally just me being selfish because he was on such a good run for PWA. And I hope that they will sooner rather than later, like, move him back up into that sort of slot because he's such a good worker, such a good character, such a good gimmick, so very good on the mic, so very good on the in the ring. So hopefully it's one of those things where like you can't stop someone from rising. But yeah, it was really good to see Matt Diamond too back in the ring.
Yep, yeah, quite true. I'll give you a quick, just a quick story. Our final show of our first run in Sydney, we had Rick South versus Sam, and like we opened it up to the PWA roster, and Jess Troy came out, and a rather big man who likes eating a lot of chocolate-based products came out as well, and it was just so much fun because. But we also had referee Nick as a special guest who was great as well. And it just, at that point, I became a big mark for both Sam and obviously Ricky, but Sam particularly, highly charismatic, and it's great to see him back.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, this is like selfish. I would have much rathered Sam Osborne versus Matt Diamond as this match.
Oh,
but
of course.
I understand that this was a part of the show where you're saving the singles action for the final match, right?
Yeah.
You become 8-man tag team. All right, here's your real wrestling match that everyone is waiting for. And it's the Coliseum final, Zack Sabre Jr. versus Paris de Silva for almost 20 minutes. Hell to leather. These two absolutely stretch the piss out of each other. This was bloody brilliant. There was so much energy in the room. Everyone really wanted Paris to win, but everyone had so much respect for ZSJ. The feeling when ZSJ got the win in the room was like half shocked and half thrilled. It was so strange. And ZSJ holding the sword, like we've said, legitimizes the Coliseum tournament forever. You can't argue with the Coliseum tournament now. He has legitimized those swords. Had a great post-match promo where he spoke about living in Japan and how the last thing Japan needs is another white cunt with a sword. Spoke about how important it is to be part of TMDK and how important Australia is in TMDK and how the members of TMDK all are in some way part of Australia. Spoke about the velocities not being long for Australia, saying make the most of them while they're here because they are not going to last here very long. And talking about how much he loves working in Australia. I think that ZSJ was a storied professional for both of these nights. The amount of photos and conversations he had with fans between the first night and FanFest was unreal. And the fact that at FanFest, he legitimately spent minimum 5 minutes talking to every person who lined up for a photo. A stand-up professional who put on some of the best matches I've ever seen in person on this Coliseum tournament. And credit to Paris de Silva for absolutely hanging with him. But yeah, ZSJ, fantastic winner of the 2023 Coliseum tournament.
Oh yeah.
Also, he's the title match with Jess, but that's because he gets a title shot now that he's won that tournament. So,
well, that's not necessarily part of the booking of Coliseum. You don't win a title shot; you win a sword. But what he said was exactly right. Normally, if you win a tournament, you get a title shot because you've proved you're the best. So he's been.
But they were putting that over on commentary as well.
Oh, I didn't hear the commentary, so I didn't know that. But would not surprise me at all if he wanted to get in the ring with Jess, which would be, God, that'd be a good match, wouldn't it?
What a superb finale to a great tournament. Like, just superb. I thought Paris hung with Zach, if you like, really, really well. And the story the match told was just perfect. Like, it was just really, really good. I was so big on this match. I was big on Sabre against Jude, but because it was a different match. Like, Sabre doesn't just go in there and wrestle the same match over and over and get his shit in. No, he's so smart and wrestles so beautifully. You can watch him for hours. Massive, massive fan of the guy.
And there are so many little things that I didn't notice until I was watching him in person. Like, when someone is covering him, he tries and fails to kick out at 1, and then he kicks out at 2. It's the little things, right? He is so good at constantly paying attention to what's happening. He sells moves that happened in previous matches. It's absolutely masterful work. Yeah, Keanu said, I think both velocities are really good and really lifted against Zach. Shows how good they are, but Zach is a master. Yeah, I mean, it's hard to argue that, yeah, said on my personal Facebook, ZSJ is a wizard. He is so good in every possible way. As they made him say in the Cruiserweight Classic, Harry Potter isn't the only wizard from England.
I just want to say that as much as I loved it, I think he should have loosened up and sworn a little bit in his post-match promo. He didn't kind of do any of that. You know, that's what I watch Zach for. And hell, he is swear.
There's a potty mouth on that fella.
I put on my Twitter Zach Sweary Jr. because it really was. He went hell for leather, but it was look, you know, who cares? It was great.
Yeah. Are
they going to tell him off? Are they going to tell him off? He's carrying around a fucking sword. What's anyone going to say to him?
I'll also say I loved the design of Iron Mercy. I really, really liked it. My only concern for Coliseum going forward is coming up with an interesting new sword design is only going to get more and more difficult as time goes on.
I want the sword of Grayskull.
Yeah. I think the next sword is going to be like a Final Fantasy VII Buster sword in white. That's my prediction.
My prediction.
Jeff, you got a sword prediction?
Yeah, it'll have sharp edges.
Ooh, controversial take.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, you can tell Alex Fireheart saying you can tell how Zach knew his audience with how many bleeps there were in the YouTube upload. Yeah, I really enjoyed this show. Are there any closing thoughts about the 2 nights of PWA Coliseum 2023?
No, it was not. Go on, sorry, Todd, you go first.
No, you go, Jeff. You go.
I was going to say it was nigh on pretty perfect. Like, sure, there were a couple of those matches were a bit sort of lower in energy and definitely not as inspiring as they could have been. But all up, the night was pretty dang good, and I was very impressed with what PWA brought to it. And it showed because the crowds were loud and completely invested.
I want to, Todd?
Yeah, I was just going to say, just over the weekend as a whole, like you had MCW up on Fight, then you had the 2 nights of PWA. This is like, when has Australian wrestling been as strong as maybe just before the pandemic? That's when it felt like it was this strong. 2 really like the MCW show was very, very fucking strong. Very strong, very good, like finishing up on storylines, all of that sort of deal. Then you move to the Coliseum, where it was a 2-night tournament where they told story through that tournament. They finished up the story with Jess Troy. It was just a really, really good weekend of Australian wrestling, and it's something that makes you proud to be part of the industry when you see how far along that we've come as a group.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to talk about FanFest quickly. I'm going to be a little bit negative here because I think that
PWA chicken shit.
PWA chicken shit. That's rare. I did go along to PWA FanFest. I think that they need to have a better idea of what FanFest is going to look like, because it felt like they went, we can put some stuff together. And so they sold $30 tickets. And then it just kind of happened. So the way that it worked is with buying your ticket, you got a Coliseum t-shirt. And the way that worked was when you lined up to get a photo with Zack Sabre Jr., you got asked, hey, have you filled out the website to get your t-shirt? I don't have a QR code, so I'll tell you the link to so that you can fill out the details and we'll ship a shirt to you. Okay. Like, it feels like that could have been massively done better, right? I know that they don't want to overprint a bunch of shirts in different sizes, but then they don't have your size because that's too popular. But if you're going to have shirts come with the ticket, when I fill out the ticket, ask what size shirt I am.
Wrestling fans, extra large, double extra large, triple extra large. You're pretty safe.
Yeah, Keanu Review said it was really weird, but supposedly it was all games and eating in 2019. Yeah, there was like I actually took part in an eating contest against Kai Drake, who disgusting. I don't know how a human eats that fast. It was hideous. But the way the sign up worked for that was Jax was walking around and said, hey, give me a yell if you want to be part of the eating contest. And then you had to like find Jax wandering around, who was also setting up stuff for a podcast that was going on. And when I got to him, he went, yeah, there's one spot left. We can get you in. And it's like, oh, all right, cool. Yeah, and they had some cool stuff. Like, clearly the PWA talent had come up with some fun stuff that they could do. So Jimmy Townsend was running games of 3-card Monty and just schooling everyone because you couldn't catch him out at 3-card Monty. And Jimbro Jesse and Jack Payne had a test of strength booth where you could do an arm wrestle against Jack Payne, or you could try to open an impossible to open jar of pickles to earn a little like gold medal in your test of strength game. And like all that stuff's fun, but it did really feel, and like Mick Moretti had a stall of like vintage clothes that you could buy. He was running his own little op shop. Okay. Very Mick. A great way to be able to go and buy merch without lines and talk to wrestlers and get photos, and a great opportunity to like get a photo with Zack Sabre Jr. and stuff. But it really felt like they went, we'll run this thing, we'll say there's going to be stuff, and then we'll decide what it is. That was actually one of my favorites. Jamie in the comments said Kingsley was doing tea leaf readings, and beside her, you could also get your fortune told in tarot. Like, great stuff. But clearly that's stuff that the wrestlers have gone, oh, I can do a thing for FanFest. I can do this. Then they did put on an Academy showcase, which Keanu mentions there. And I think that you could build around it being an Academy showcase with FanFest stuff going on. It just really felt like they didn't think through what FanFest was supposed to look like and what preparation would need to be done. And I understand when you've got a 2-night wrestling event, a lot of focus goes into that, right? You don't want to be organizing Coliseum and then have a bunch of other things to organize. But I think if you're going to sell $30 tickets to a FanFest, you need to have an idea of what that FanFest is going to look like, a bit more stable, with a bit more stuff ready to go, rather than it did seem a little bit thrown together. Like Jamie said here, great showing by Lil Mars and Bobby Bishop during the showcase. Awesome to see them in a Sydney ring, but it also put them in a weird spot because those are perennial baby faces that were working heel. Yeah. And it was like, what's going on here? What is happening? Alex Fireheart says, was there a setup dedicated to the history of Coliseum? No, not at all.
Okay, I think that you can't, like, if you've ever been to the WWE Access type stuff or a fan fest that WWE put on, which no matter what is the market leader and is what people should look at as an example. There is so much going on. And yeah, they're a company with a deep, deep history. But like, I was looking at a statue of Andre the Giant. I was looking at the big statue, like you know what it looks like. And Tim White is standing next to me. I got talking with Tim White, and it was just like this surreal moment.
Yeah, but also, do you know how much money would go into setting up that? Do you know what I mean? Like cost prohibitive is what I'm saying.
But I'm saying there are things they can still do as long as they plan it out. It's got to be better planned out. And if they're going to plan out a fan fest, they plan it out in January for October. They don't plan it out in June for October. And I wasn't there. I don't have a horse in the race. But make sure that you've got plans on what you want. You know, Jamie with the cards is great, but ask other people to diversify the portfolio so there's something for everybody, so people stick around, so they buy the food at the venue, so they buy the drinks at the venue, and then it becomes a thing. Now it's just this higgledy-piggledy, you know, unconfirmed kind of mishmash of stuff. Better
and like I enjoyed it because it meant that I could go and buy my trading cards from Jamie without having to pay for shipping, right? Which is something that I wanted to do. And it meant that I could, you know, buy my TMDK shirt without standing in line in a venue that the floor was packed on.
Yeah.
But I didn't know what I was buying a ticket for. If I had bought a ticket for meet and greet, then I would go in expecting that and I'd be pleasantly surprised by the other stuff. But what I bought was almost advertised like it was this huge experience like you get in a WWE. And then it was just that the venue happened to be hired for the full day because they were hiring it for the 2 days and didn't want to pack down and then repack the ring, which I totally get. If you're doing a 2-day event, you have the event for the full 2 days and they want to do something with it. But it felt like that was the grand total of thought that went into it.
Yeah. Now, can I say something? And it's gonna sound like it's gonna sound like sour grapes, but it's not. It's a genuine thing. If you were gonna have a podcast at this place, maybe do a podcast that actually supports Australian wrestling. Like, I don't care if it was us or if it was on the Turnbuckle, any of the other ones, but they had one. This is nothing against them. They had a New Japan Pro Wrestling Australian podcast there. Not the guys that have supported the like, and this is the thing too. PWA talk about rising tide rises all ships. I like to think that we try and rise tides.
Yeah,
and it's a little thing. I just, because you can't tell me that we couldn't have had a PWA person on there and talk authoritatively about the shows, because we watch them all, we review them all, we support them all, we encourage people to go and watch them every fucking week on this show. Us on the Turnbuckle do the same thing. That's my only sort of gripe. And I know it's a personal gripe because this is my baby. I've been doing this fucking thing for 10 years. But that when I saw that, and this is, again, nothing against the guys, they're just not an Australian wrestling podcast. They had one guest on. It was Robbie. Anyway.
Who's a New Japan guy.
Who's a New Japan guy, yeah.
Yeah. So
I don't know. Maybe they go to every MCW show. PWA show. I have no idea. I've never listened to the show myself personally, so I couldn't tell you, to be perfectly honest. But we review every PWA show. We review every MCW show. We review RCW shows. We do Australian. The place is called Australian, like Wrestle Radio Australia. 10 years. Anyway, that's. And I'm sorry, it sounded. This is not Jeff. This is not Lachlan. This is just me saying it. Sorry.
And Keanu's saying, no, the podcast they are New Japan guys. Like, it's not Aussie wrestling stuff. And I think that plays into a bit of what I'm saying about, like, I wanted this to know what it was, right? They advertised live podcasts, and the podcast that they had was New Japan guys interviewing a couple of the PWA guys with half a dozen chairs in front of them, right? And they advertised, you know, like contests, and it was 4 people got to eat a burger against Kai Drake. So, like, I get the idea behind it. I think it was, for me, I really enjoyed it, especially the Academy Showcase stuff. Getting to watch some of those up-and-coming wrestlers was really enjoyable. But know what it is beforehand to advertise what this event is going to be. Don't just have the venue so you host something and then decide later.
Maybe it's just a growing pain, and next year it'll be better. And they'll work on it, and they'll learn from their mistakes. Who knows?
And as I said, work on it for a while. Don't just sort of pull us backwards into it.
Jamie App said On the Turnbuckle did the Fan Fest the first year. I have no idea why you wouldn't get them back.
Yeah.
Right? Like, that makes sense to me. Anyway.
Yeah. I'm not saying it had to be us. I'm just saying, like, someone who actually does Australian wrestling would be great.
Yeah. Look, we've got a lot of Aussie wrestling coming up to promote, so let's really quickly do some chicken salad and chicken shits. If you're here at twitch.tv/WrestleRadio Australia, you would have heard us with a huge rampage of chicken shit earlier. So, Jeff, I wouldn't be surprised if you're fresh out. Is that the case?
No, I'll think of something.
Cool. Well, in that case, I'll fire away and vamp so that you've got an opportunity. I'll start with a chicken shit. This is the rebrand of Impact going back to the TNA name. Fuck this bullshit. I know that the recognition for Impact is not as there as it was when they were TNA. I know they're trying to rebrand to get themselves back into the conversation. Now that AEW exists, it feels like they have been pushed down the ladder, especially as New Japan has become more popular. It's fair to say that Impact is like the number 4 promotion now, where it was the number 2, and they would want to reclimb that ladder, and TNA was the name that they did it under. I fucking hate the TNA name. I fucking hate it. It's Attitude Era bullshit, right? It's appealing to the kind of people who aren't there for wrestling. They're there for the 90s, let's show some women in bikinis bullshit. It's regressive and it's stupid as fuck because it doesn't actually stand for things. Non-stop is not one word. It's not TNSA, right? You're trying to make an acronym to associate with dehumanizing women. And so you worked backwards to get to this shitty acronym. I hate it. I think it's disrespectful to all of the guys who have been making Impact really good over the past couple of years by saying, oh, the only time that it was worthwhile was when Hogan and Bischoff were running shit. So let's go back to that name. That's because that's what the TNA name reminds me of. It reminds me of, oh, they made tits and ass into a wrestling promotion, and Hogan and Bischoff are there, and Foley's past his best days.
See, when I think of TNA, I think of Samoa Joe, Christopher Daniels, AJ Styles, Chris Sabin, the Motor City Machine Guns. I think of all the earlier days. I don't think of Hogan and that as TNA at all. I honestly think of them as Impact.
But you say those names, and I think of Ring of Honor.
But that's where they had the five-star match. The 5-star Dave Meltzer bullshit match was Destination X, TNA.
Yeah, the big triple threat. Yeah, absolutely. But I feel like they are taking a step backwards and not a step forwards.
I feel like you're looking too far into it. For TNA, I don't even associate TNA with that TNA. I associate it with TNA wrestling.
I do have to come in here and say that, while TNA existed, I was an outsider because I couldn't watch WWE or TNA because I didn't have Foxtel at my place. I couldn't watch it. And I didn't have good enough internet to stream it, so I wasn't watching wrestling at the time. And then when I got actively into wrestling, it was the Aces and Eights bullshit, and then they rebranded as Impact, and I started enjoying it.
Which, by the way, Aces and Eights actually ages pretty well. If you watch it as a storyline, I actually like it. But remind me, and I will bring some old TNA, because I've got some old TNA DNA DVDs. I'll bring some for you to watch.
Hell yeah.
Some really good stuff.
And let me be clear, I'm not saying that TNA was bad. Alex Fireheart saying Lachlan missed out on seeing the flying Elvises. I missed out on a lot.
Sonny Siaki, who I thought was going to be the next Rock. There was a lot of really good stuff in there.
I'll remind everyone that my return to wrestling was Daniel Bryan winning the world championship in 2013. That's when I properly got into wrestling. No, he won it at SummerSlam in 13, and then Randy Orton took it from him. He won it
I thought you meant when he won it. Yeah.
No, the SummerSlam. That SummerSlam was my first pay-per-view back into watching wrestling.
Actually, you will actually love it because I've got a lot of, because I think I even mentioned it. I put that post up after we'd worked the match with Kazarian and Eric Young, where like if you'd have told Tape Trading Toddy back then I was going to work in a show one day with Eric Young and Frankie Kazarian, I would have told him it was crazy. I've got old TNA DVDs, right? And they're bootleg DVDs. But the guy that I bought the DVDs off, because I used to buy so many, he would give me all of the impacts that led up to the pay-per-view. And this is Impact when it was on like Fox Sports 93 or whatever the fuck it was. So it's all really old, like Michael Shane. I don't know if you've ever heard of Michael Shane. Michael Shane is like Shawn Michaels. Him is in the tag team with, I think it might have been Frankie. I can't even remember, to be perfectly honest with you. Like, yeah, that era of TNA is what I think of when I think of TNA. I don't think of aces and eights. I don't think of any of that sort of stuff. I think
as someone who
the
like
golden era of it.
Well, I missed the golden era of TNA. So what happened is when I got back into wrestling and I just started consuming every bit of wrestling content I could, I was like, okay, let's check out what happened in TNA. And I can tell you what happened in TNA. There was a great triple threat match with Joe and Styles and Daniels. And also there was a lot of really bad old wrestlers trying to earn an extra $4. Like that's like, when you Google what happened in TNA, that's what comes up. That's what I know as TNA.
Yeah, that's not entirely accurate though. Some really good stuff.
Angle's first probably 3 years with the company were just fucking great.
Perk Angle when he was on every substance known to man and just throwing his body to the wind.
Yeah,
but see, look,
I don't like the fact that he was throwing his body around so much, but yeah, the storylines were fantastic.
I come from the thing where I was watching TNA back when it was the weekly pay-per-views. When and you want to talk bad TNA, that was bad TNA to start with. That was when fucking
Quick treating you.
No, that was, mate. It's worse than that. Fucking Vince Russo used to have a group called Sports Entertainment Extreme.
Yeah,
with an X.
With an X.
But
great.
The shame was it was Elix, Skipper, Primetime. What was his name?
Yeah, Elix Skipper.
Not Daniels. The other guy.
No, it was Elix Skipper. Brian Christopher Daniels, and who was the third one?
Mike Sanders. Mike Sanders was.
No, that was in Sports Entertainment Extreme. What was the one with they had the match with someone in the chat? They had the match with
Low Key says Alex
America's
Barha.
Most Wanted. Thank you, Low Key. America's Most Wanted in the cage. America's Most Wanted, and they're in a cage
across the top of one of those old-fashioned cages with a really thin railing and did a Hurricane Rana. It was amazing. It was amazing.
Yeah, and of course, Andy PWDU says, I can't let any discussion of TNA highlights pass without mentioning Steiner Math and the Lethal Nate promo. Speaking of Steiner, he hates ducks. I believe that also happened in TNA. Look,
can I just also say
said it, take a drink.
How nice it is to have a positive discussion about TNA, Beer Money. Their tag scene was fantastic. And also, least we forget, Hail Shark Boy.
Good
also,
old Shark Boy.
Team Canada.
Team Canada was excellent.
Team Canada.
And they made a huge star out of Eric Young at the end of it. He was
just someone who really likes women's wrestling, going back and seeing the Knockouts division, where they had genuinely good women's wrestling at a time where that didn't exist, right? I think that Impact was a bad name choice when they rebranded because the show was already called Impact, so it was already still just the same TNA show, and it meant that no one really knew that they'd changed their name because when Impact came up, people were like, well, that's the Monday night show of TNA or whatever it was. I think they should have properly rebranded the first time around, and that's why I feel like this is reductive.
But to your point, during World Series Wrestling, when those two were wrestling in the ring, like in our tag match, the crowd weren't chanting Impact, were they? They were chanting TNA. It's the three-letter acronym that's easy for people to chant. It's a wrestling thing. It's a wrestling trope.
Yeah, but they instead of being Impact, they could have been WWX and it would have been fine. You know what I mean?
No, they would have been in Germany.
Can I just mention my chicken shit? And Todd, I think you'll appreciate this. Santana and Ortiz for the first time I think, ever, are fighting each other in a mainstream company. They probably had indie matches before, and they're doing it on a fucking episode of Rampage on a Saturday that no one's going to watch because no one knows when Rampage is. It's ridiculous.
And it's possibly one of the better angles that they have at the moment. The strength of the promos alone.
Yeah. They're really good. They're really fun. And they're putting it on a Friday night at butt-fuck nowhere. And it's just so, it's so sad.
Yeah. Yeah, Rampage, the new AEW Dark, says Alex Fireheart. Todd, do you have a chicken shit to fire away?
Look, honestly, I think my chicken shit was just the stuff I mentioned about with the FanFest, the podcasting. That's really it.
That's a personal one, and that's fine.
Yeah.
Let's be happier for a minute. I'm going to talk chicken salad, and for me, again, this one's a personal. Again, take a drink because I said for me. The people that I got to meet over this weekend at PWA was unreal. Saying hi to Keanu, being able to meet Beck. It was just such a delight having people, that you could shake hands with and go, yes, we care about wrestling. We're in this together. We're here because we think this is going to be an awesome 2 nights of shows. And it was just delightful to shake hands with people I really respect. Obviously being able to get a photo with Zack Sabre Jr. and Madison Eagles doesn't hurt, but just the people around making that such an exciting, wonderful weekend. And Keanu says, was awesome to meet you, Lachlan. Keanu, you're an absolute delight, mate. It was so nice to, show up, and there were people with a big smile on their face. Both the commentators from PWA, both Rose and Chris, said hi. And it's so nice to be around those people who genuinely want this to be great and know that we're in it together. I cannot be positive enough about the people that I met this weekend on Sydney. So a big shout out to all of you. Thank you again, Jamie.
Wait till you're around it for another 4 or 5 years, and a young wrestler will come up to you on the show and say that they listen to you, and that's the show, and that's why that's how they got into Australian wrestling. That's possibly one of my favorite things about doing this, is that I've heard that a few times from people back in the day when they did all the interviews. It's like, oh yeah, I used to listen to this all the time. It's how I knew how to get into wrestling. That shit's awesome. It's unreal. Good to know that we can do that shit.
Andy PWDU says, chicken salad. How good is Australian wrestling? In the last 2 weeks, I've been to MCW and both Coliseum shows, and I've seen wrestling that is absolutely world class. Between Delta Jarvis, Ricky Jess, and ZSJ Jude, I've seen 3 matches I thought were incredible match of the year contenders and were so different to each other. Abso-fucking-lutely, Andy. What a time to be an Aussie wrestling fan.
Mine is my chicken salad this week is exactly that. It's that Zack Sabre Jr. didn't have to work harder to bring amazing matches out of great talent. Great talent rose to Zack's level and made you believe they could beat him. In all 3 matches he was in, he sold like a motherfucker for them. And it was just so bloody wonderful to see a great Australian wrestling stepping up. And also, Emmett against Jude was fantastic. So, we've got every reason to be really, really proud of the wrestlers here in Australia, and make sure you see them while they're in Australia. Make sure you're not just running out and going, oh, no, I just want to see WWE light. No, watch them now. Watch Jarvis before he goes. Watch Delta before she goes. For crying out loud, she's not going to be around much longer. Oh, you can tell.
I know. I said this in the first episode we did tonight, and I'll say it again. And it's been confirmed to me by Brooksy. Per capita, we have the strongest wrestling talent in the world in Australia, because Brooksy's went and he worked all the American indies for a while there. It was like, you got no idea the level of just ordinary that is there. Like pretty much going over to you could go to there's a lot of promotions here in Australia you can go to, and there are people that shouldn't be here. They should be on pay-per-views around the world. And that just is a testament to how good the industry is, how strong the industry is per capita around the world. Like I put our overall roster up against any roster around the world, and we compete and in most cases dominate.
How about this comment from Andy? Let's stop Aus Wrestling from being our best kept secret. It's cool that we're the ones watching Nirvana at the Horden, but our wrestlers deserve to be playing huge arenas. We are watching fucking Nirvana at the Horden right now. That's what's happening.
We are. And Rosie's just popped in the chat to say much love to us.
Much love, Rosie.
You guys did great work on the weekend, mate. It was lovely listening to you. The pair of you did so well.
It's like I said, and I say it every time I go to one of these, like a WWE show, or if I go to, like I worked the World Series wrestling show, I think it was like 700, I can't remember, was it 700 at World Series?
Something like that.
700 people come to watch that show. Why can't we get them to watch our local shows every month or every 2 months or however often we have our shows? We should be able to do it because our guys are as good as.
Do you want to read that out, Lachlan?
Yeah, Rosie in the chat saying, fun Coliseum story for you. I popped one of my ribs out of place on night 2. How did I do it? Caveman Ugg was so happy to see me. Bear hugged me into a rib injury. I hurt, boys!
Feel better, Rosie.
Oh, we love you, Rose. Hope that heals up well, mate. That's horrible to hear. And yeah, T-Bone in the chat saying the world deserves to know our secret, that we have some of the best in the world right here. Jamie Apps Media saying, couldn't Ozres Super Show fill a 600 to 700 seater? I think it'd be, but it should.
I'm
going to tell you now, the Slam Wrestling show in December in Canberra is coming close to 1,500 people. They're closing in on 1,500 people. That's an achievement, and it's excellent. So, yeah, Jamie, they could.
Do you know what I'd like to see? I would like to see when EPW do this big Australian showcase, I would like to see it sell so many fucking tickets they have to find a bigger venue.
Yeah.
You're going to be over there for WWE. Go and get your tickets to see this show as well.
Oh, and there might be.
You're listening to this show. You're obviously watching fucking Australian wrestling. Go and support it. If you're going there to watch the Elimination Chamber, I don't give a fuck. Like Undertaker, yeah, that's cool. If he's on at the same time as his show, fuck him. Go and see Australian wrestling.
A fucking man.
And there might be something else on there as well that I'll talk about soon.
Oh. Oh yeah, Jeff, you're right. Let's talk about
doing a podcast.
Has everyone gotten their chicken salad out? Was that all of us? I'm losing it. We've been podcasting for 3.5 hours. And gosh, if this is what I'm feeling like after 3.5 hours, you folks do not want to miss November 11th, where we are committed to 10 hours of hell here at twitch.tv/WrestleRadio Australia. That's right. We're not leaving your ears for not 1, not 9, not 11, but 13, not 10, not 13, 10. I'm fully losing.
What? What?
The fucking he's smoking.
I no longer know what I'm saying. 10 hours of live stream on November 11th here at twitch.tv/WrestleRadio Australia. So make sure you get amongst that. Let's talk about what shows are coming up. And
no, Lachlan, let's be honest. It's just 10 hours of you going, not 7, not 3.
Not 1, not 2.
Not 99.
Like 3 hours later. Not 465, not 466.
Amba.
So here is my chat. Oh, and also we'll throw to Alex Fireheart, who said that PCW on its own filled the basketball stadium with a little over 2,000 people pre-COVID. Super Show could manage it. Here's
just quietly too. This past weekend, I was working on the t-shirt design with Redneck Kung Fu for the 10 years thing that will be going up as soon when it's done, so we can sell that as well to all the money for our 10, because we were remiss to mention this. The whole idea of doing the 10-hour marathon is to try and raise money for mental health, for men's health, all of that good stuff that we do support here in WRA. Hopefully we're going to be getting some stuff to be able to auction off. We're going to get a commemorative shirt. It's being designed by Redneck Kung Fu. If you don't know who she is, she's designed shirts for Adam Cole, MDK,
Speedball Mike Bailey,
everyone you can think of in indie wrestling. She's done some of the best shirts you'll ever find for it. Amazing person, and she's agreed to help us because she knows all the money is going to charity. So
yeah, absolutely.
Look out for that when it hits.
I also want to mention that Wrestle Radio Australia has been about supporting mental health for a long time now. One of the first things that I ever said to Todd was actually sending him a message, because Wrestle Radio Australia, long before I was a part of it, was doing specials about mental health, and it was something that had helped me while I was just a fan. So I'm really proud to be able to work with Todd and Jeff to keep pushing that forward and help more with mental health. So we'll talk more about that stuff in a minute, but I'm going to challenge everyone. I'm going to list out some upcoming Australian wrestling shows. We're going to talk about what's on the horizon, and this is my challenge to you. Everyone who is listening should be going to at least one of these shows, minimum one. There is no reason not to. My challenge to you is to bring someone who doesn't often come to wrestling to one of these shows. Find someone who you think might enjoy pro wrestling and bring them to the best fucking wrestling in the world, that is Aussie Wrestling.
He gets bossy after 3 hours, doesn't he?
Yeah, I'm telling you what to do. Do it. October 28th, PWL Day of Reckoning is going up here in Brisbane. Is going to have the main event of Outback Adam versus Punch Drunk Istria for the PWL Heavyweight Championship. The first defense for Outback Adam. That one's going to be huge. So if you're in Brisbane, that is the one to go to immediately. That's, oh my goodness, that's on Saturday. November 11th, Renegades in Melbourne is having Breakthrough. Tickets are on sale for that now. If you want to bring someone that might like wrestling to a huge show, check out this show that has Ambush versus BDE, that has Solomon Blackwell versus Lockie Hendricks, that has Robbie Eagles versus Jarvis. What a show that is going to be. Hey, if you're in the Queensland area, you want to talk about best kept secrets in Australian wrestling? Wide Bay Pro. And I'm not just saying it because I do the ring announcing. I'm saying, and I know that we don't talk about it a whole lot because we're involved. They are some of my favorite shows in the country to attend. Is Wide Bay Pro Wrestling, and at the Maryborough Town Hall in what I believe is the biggest show of Wide Bay's history. The main event for the title is going to be a triple threat between Tim Hayden, Yeet Stevens, and the Business Slacks. It is going to be massive. December 1st, again for the Brisbaneites. This is one that I'm picking as the one that I'm bringing some new people to. See, it's not just a challenge for you guys. I'm doing it too. December 1st, Bayside Brawl at the Wynnum Fringe, hosted by PWL. So Outback Adam will maybe still have the title, or maybe it'll be with Punch Drunk Istria following Day of Reckoning. But either way, he's going to be there at Bayside Brawl. I figure it'll be an awesome show that really showcases just how good Brisbane wrestling can be. In Melbourne on December 10th, we've got MCW Endgame. There's some tickets still left for this. So if you want to bring someone to a show, and it's going to be this one, you'd better get on it quick, because it's going to have Brooksy versus Edward Dusk in a sacrament. That should be disgusting. If you want to take someone to some old school 90s hardcore, look at these men just absolutely take it to each other, December 10th, MCW Endgame. Get along to that. And then we want to talk about a super show. Here's one that I'm traveling to. Jeff, I know you're traveling to it. So please, everyone, say hi to us at Slam Wrestling's Rage in the Cage. This one's on December 16th at the National Convention Centre in Canberra. Main event being Broderick's versus Watts in a steel cage, as well as the Terry Campisi Battle Royale that's got huge names such as Rick South. It's going to be a massive show. Like we said, multiple tiers already sold out. December 16th in Canberra. Hey, if you're in Canberra on December 16th, Jeff, is there anything to do if you get there a little early, like on December 15th in Canberra?
Yeah, if you're going to be there for the weekend, and heck, why not? The one thing about Canberra is it's smack bang in the middle between Sydney and Melbourne, a little bit closer to Melbourne, but it's easy to get to. If you're going to be there on the Friday night, why not head to the Polish Club and grab yourself a seat and a ticket to WrestleBrania X Slam Wrestling. We are so excited to present this. We have some fantastic guests, like, Luke Watts. What? He's fighting for the title the next night, and yet he's coming out to have some fun and do WrestleBrania with us. What a legend. We also have the incredible, as seen on TV, and in the award-winning movie Emu Wars, it won an award last night. Dane Simpson's going to be on there. So people should absolutely go there. And yes, Jamie, I'd like to meet you, so come down for this show. Look, it's going to be such a hoot. We can't wait. We've got some great games and great surprises. And if you've never watched WrestleBrania, it's a perfect time to jump on. It's going to be great.
I will throw out that there has been a match announcement for that Slam show. The match announced is Slex versus Tommy Knight. So, it should be a good one, I think.
Oh, and Robbie Eagles versus Dan Archer. That's not going to be too bad either, because Watts' opponent at WrestleBrania is none other than Dan Archer. Go figure.
And did we say Kingsley versus Jimbro Jesse?
Yeah, we did earlier.
Yes. What a lineup. Okay, so get along to that. And while you're putting stuff in your calendar, like we said, November 11th here at twitch.tv/WrestleRadio Australia is our 10-hour live stream. So make sure you join us for that, with the money going to charities like Beyond Blue and Gotcha for Life, the same charities that we give to when you make a purchase from Redbubble after searching for Wrestle Radio Australia, getting some of our merch, getting that money into good hands. Hey, if you're searching for stuff already, search for Wrestle Radio Australia on whatever podcast platform you're using, whether that be YouTube or Apple Podcasts or Spotify or Podcast Addict or whatever. Hit the subscribe button. Get us in your ears. If you're on Apple Podcasts, give us a 5-star review because it helps get us out to more people. Follow us on social media. You can get Todd at Beast Eastman. You can get Jeff at Jeff_Seti. You can get me at Lachlan Albert. You can get Jeff's WrestleBrania stuff at Wrestle_Brania. You can get Wrestle Radio Australia at Wrestle Radio AU on both Twitter and Instagram, and you can just search Facebook for Wrestle Radio Australia, and you'll find us right there. Is there anything else that we need to say?
I swear, for Christmas, I'm going to buy you an Excalibur mask.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, Man in the Mask, that's amazing. That was a fantastic effort. It's almost 12:30 here in Melbourne.
Thank you so much, everyone who joined us here for our marathon 2-episode podcast recording. On behalf of Todd Eastman, on behalf of Jeff Seti, I've been Lachlan Albert. Till next time, have a good one.
Here I was, blaming AEW for feeding you chicken shit, knowing you mindless millennials would be eating it up as if it were chicken salad, when it's really been your fault all along.
Make chicken salad out of chicken shit. People is as people does, that's all there is to it. But a square peg in a round hole just never seems to fit.